The hospital hallway felt colder than usual. Kyle Anderson walked briskly through Silvercrest Hospital, his breath catching slightly at the antiseptic smell curling in the air. It was still early, maybe 7:30, but outside, the rising sun was already lighting up the rugged silhouette of the surrounding mountains. Kyle had driven down from his hilltop estate to check on a possible donation project, a new trauma ward for the hospital's ICU. His assistant, Lillian, had reminded him 3 times about this appointment. But now that he was here, something else grabbed his attention. He heard crying. Not the quiet sob of an exhausted adult, but the trembling, fragile sound of little kids, too, by the sound of it. Frowning, he followed the noise, the echo of it pulling him away from the administrative wing and toward a cluster of plastic chairs near the emergency section. There, sitting on a bench, were 2 children who looked about 6 or 7 years old. The boy had curly dark hair sticking out in all directions, while the girl had the same curly texture, but her hair was tamed into 2 small pigtails. Tears streaked her cheeks, and her eyes shone with worry. As Kyle neared, he noticed something that nearly knocked the air right out of him. The girl's eyes. They were a warm hazel, flecked with gold. He'd seen that before too many times to count in the gaze of a woman he once loved more than anything on earth. He took a slow step toward them, heart pounding. "Hey," he said softly, "are you 2 okay?" The little boy glanced up, eyes puffy and red. He squeezed his sister's hand. "Mommy's in there," he said, pointing to the glowing sign above the double doors that read emergency surgery. They said she got hurt real bad." Kyle swallowed. "Your mom's name, do you know it?" "June Collins," the girl whispered, her voice cracking. "She was driving us to school and the road was slippery." Another wave of tears slipped down her face. "I'm Katie," she added finally, sniffling. "And this is Liam, June Collins." The name made Kyle's chest tighten. 5 years since he'd last seen her. 5 years since she disappeared without so much as a goodbye call, leaving him with more questions than answers. Could it really be the same June? The one he'd once talked about building a life with? He knelt so he was eye level with them, forcing a calming breath. "I'm Kyle. He paused, uncertain how to explain who he was or why he was so rattled. I know your mom, a while ago." Katie's watery gaze flickered. "You do?" she murmured, seeming surprised and a little hopeful. "She never talked about you." Kyle felt that like a punch. "It was some time ago," he managed, keeping his tone gentle. "Can you tell me what happened this morning?" Liam answered this time, voice shaky. "We were driving on the mountain pass to get to our school down in the valley. It was rainy last night. The road was slippery. A truck came around a curve too fast. Mom, she tried to swerve." He faltered, and Kyle found himself placing a steady hand on the boy's shoulder. "It's all right. It's not your fault." God, the kid looked terrified. Before Kyle could ask more, a nurse strode over. Her eyes flicked to Kyle. She recognized him. Everyone in Silvercrest recognized Kyle Anderson, the local millionaire who'd financed half the solar power initiatives around these mountains. "Sir, are you family?" Kyle wasn't sure how to answer that. I know June," he said. "Is she how bad is it?" "She's in critical condition," the nurse replied, voice hushed. "They rushed her into emergency surgery for internal bleeding. The children have no other family contacts we can reach. We've been trying to figure out a guardian arrangement until Miss Collins stabilizes." Katie let out a tiny sob. Liam looked away, blinking back tears. The nurse placed a reassuring hand on the kid's shoulders, but her own eyes held worry. It was a small-town hospital, resources stretched thin. They were likely waiting on an official from social services. Kyle inhaled, fighting the swirling memories of June, her bright laughter, the way she'd once taught him to do a salsa step in the middle of his living room, the nights they'd spent under the stars. He'd never understood why she left. Maybe now he had some kind of awful clue. He turned to the nurse, voice low. "I'll stay with them, if that's all right." The nurse looked relieved. "They've been so scared. I'm sure having someone they know or trust would help." Did they trust him? He wasn't sure. But Katie and Liam both stared at him with wide, teary eyes, as if he was the only safety net left. Kyle's heart twisted. They must be June's kids, he thought, mind racing. And they looked about 6. She'd vanished around that time. The math didn't lie. "All right," he said quietly, more to himself than anyone. "I'll wait here with them." He settled onto the plastic bench, motioning for the twins to come closer. Katie clung to his arm. Liam leaned onto the other side. Their small bodies trembled, and Kyle could practically feel the heartbreak pouring off them. He barely noticed the bustle of the hospital staff or the pungent smell of disinfectant as he sat there. All he could think about was June unconscious, alone, and possibly fighting for her life. This can't be happening, he thought. Why now? Why like this? In the corner of his eye, he spotted Lillian stepping off the elevator, scanning the hall for him. She'd probably come to confirm details about his meeting with the hospital board. But seeing the expression on his face and the 2 distressed children, she looked alarmed. "Kyle?" she asked softly, approaching. "Is everything?" He shook his head, gently extracting himself from Katie's hold so he could rise and speak quietly to his assistant. "Something urgent came up. I need you to cancel all my appointments this morning." He flicked a glance at the twins. "I'm staying here." Lillian frowned. "Should I ask why?" He hesitated. There was too much to explain. "I'll fill you in later, Lillian. For now, just handle it, okay?" She recognized that tone. She'd never seen Kyle so unsettled, but gave a curt nod and pulled out her phone to do as instructed. Meanwhile, the nurse reappeared, gesturing for Kyle to step aside. "Sir," she said, quiet, "we've just called social services. Normally, children in this situation, especially with no immediate relatives, would be taken into protective custody. That might happen soon if Miss Collins doesn't have a designated guardian. But if you can provide care for them, it might help." Kyle glanced back at Katie and Liam, who were huddled together on the bench, faces drawn. His chest burned with an unfamiliar surge of protectiveness. "I'll do whatever I have to," he said firmly. "I promise you that." The nurse gave him a soft, almost grateful smile. "They need stability right now." Stability. Kyle almost laughed bitterly inside. He'd been a rock for his company, a pillar for philanthropic efforts around the region, but never for something so personal, and never for 2 little kids who might be his own. He returned to the bench. The kids looked up at him. "You're not leaving, are you?" Liam asked quietly, his voice trembling. "No," Kyle said, sinking to one knee to be level with them. "I'm not going anywhere. I'll be right here." Katie swallowed a sob. "Mom, she always wakes us up with a kiss in the morning. She does everything alone. Are you sure she's going to be okay?" Kyle's throat tightened. He wished he had a guarantee. "The doctors here are really good," he said, trying to sound confident. "They're going to do everything they can to help her." He watched Liam's small hand grip his sister's. Then Liam looked at Kyle, eyes filled with a question he didn't dare ask out loud. Kyle recognized that look fear so deep it made your heart quake. Gently, Kyle put an arm around each child. And for a moment, it was like the entire corridor's noise and chaos faded. He felt the warmth of their shaky breath, heard the rasp of their quiet crying. This was no ordinary philanthropic project. This was personal, more personal than anything he'd handled before. He thought of June again, her voice, the tilt of her smile. He thought of the last time they'd spoken angry words, misunderstandings. Could that have led her to hide everything, even children? Kyle found himself murmuring, "You're going to be safe, both of you. I promise." There was no going back from that promise. He just prayed for once that fate would give him and June enough time to right a wrong that had gone on far too long. Kyle leaned against the beige-painted wall of the ICU's waiting area, arms crossed over his chest. 2 hours had passed since June was wheeled into surgery. 2 hours that felt like 2 days. Katie and Liam sat on worn leather chairs, nibbling on crackers a nurse had provided. They looked exhausted, like they'd run a marathon of worry. Across from them, a social worker in a gray blazer scrolled through her tablet. She introduced herself earlier as Mrs. Ellison, quietly explaining the standard protocols when a single parent is hospitalized with no other adult listed as an emergency contact. Kyle guessed she was somewhere in her 40s, with the kind of tired compassion that comes from witnessing too many tragedies. Mrs. Ellison glanced at Kyle. "Mr. Anderson, correct?" He nodded, pushing off the wall. "Yes, I—" He cleared his throat, voice edged with tension. "I'd like to look after the twins while June's recovering." He caught himself calling her by first name. "Miss Collins," he amended softly. The social worker studied him carefully. "Are you family?" He hesitated. "Not legally, but I knew her. We were close once, and I might be more than that." She raised a brow. "How so?" "Look," he said, lowering his voice. "June and I were together about 5 or 6 years ago. I never knew she had children." He paused, the words almost choking him. "There's a strong chance they're mine." "Mrs." Ellison blinked. "Is that speculation, or do you have proof?" "I'm willing to do a DNA test," Kyle answered. "But these kids—" He looked at Katie and Liam, who were whispering to each other, anxious. "They shouldn't be shoved into foster care when there's someone ready to take responsibility." The social worker nodded thoughtfully. "If Miss Collins remains in critical condition, we do have to consider immediate foster placement. But if you're stepping in as a guardian unofficially, pending results that might be workable, it'll require paperwork, references, possibly a home visit." "Whatever it takes," Kyle said firmly. A few feet away, Katie's small voice piped up, Are we gonna have to leave here?" She clutched Liam's hand. Kyle crouched beside them. "No, you can come with me. I have a home, plenty of space, and I'll make sure you're taken care of." Katie peered at him with distrust shadowed by hope. Liam, too, seemed conflicted. "Mom never told us about you," Liam murmured, fidgeting with the hem of his shirt. "But I guess it's better than going with strangers." A pang hit Kyle's heart. "I understand. It's all happening fast." He glanced at Mrs. Ellison for confirmation. The social worker gave a brisk nod. "All right, Mr. Anderson. Let's proceed with a temporary guardianship arrangement subject to verification. I'll need you to fill out these forms." She handed him a sheaf of papers, eyes serious. "And we'll arrange for a DNA test soon." Kyle accepted the forms, feeling the gravity of it all press down on him. He'd never envisioned parenthood arriving like this through heartbreak, hospital corridors, and total shock. Yet he couldn't just walk away, not when these kids were alone in the world. As he found a pen and began scribbling personal details, Katie quietly said, "Mom's a great dancer. She teaches us some moves at home. She was going to do a big performance at the community center." Her lip quivered. "She can't dance now, right?" Kyle set the pen aside, swallowing. "She'll need time to heal, but if I know June, she's strong. She'll fight hard to get back on her feet." Liam nodded, though he didn't look entirely convinced. The boy's logic-driven gaze flicked to the ICU doors. "They said she lost a lot of blood," he muttered. "I learned in science class that major blood loss can be fatal." Katie shot him a horrified look. "Don't say that, Liam." Kyle exhaled slowly, wanting to reassure them both. "Doctors here are doing everything possible. We just have to trust them." Minutes later, Mrs. Ellison took the completed paperwork. She asked for references. Idaho copies Kyle gave her Lillian's number, plus the hospital board as his local references. More phone calls would be made. After the flurry of forms, the nurse from earlier approached with a tired smile. "They're stabilizing, Miss Collins, but she's still unconscious. Surgery went on longer than expected. She'll remain in ICU." "Can we see her?" Katie pleaded. The nurse hesitated. "Briefly, but only 2 at a time." Glancing at the social worker for approval, Kyle guided the twins down the corridor to a window overlooking the ICU's glass front rooms. June lay on a bed, tubes and wires attached, an IV stand on each side. Her face was bruised, but he recognized the delicate curve of her jaw, the subtle shape of her lips. Katie pressed her nose to the glass. Liam stood on tiptoes to look. "Mom," Katie whispered, tears in her voice. Kyle's hand rested lightly on the kid's shoulders, a protective gesture he didn't even realize he was making. Inside that sterile hospital room was a woman he'd once imagined marrying. the woman who left without a trace, and now she had 2 kids who might be his. He thought about the last night they spent together, how June had seemed worried about something she wouldn't share. He'd been so wrapped up in launching an international expansion for his energy company that he hadn't pressed her, hadn't realized she felt left behind. Katie's trembling voice broke his thoughts. Is she gonna wake up soon? Kyle's chest squeezed. I don't know, he said gently, but I believe she will. She's tough. Liam stared at the myriad machines hooked to his mother. This is so complicated, he murmured. Why didn't she tell us about you? Kyle had no real answer. He'd spent the last hour forming 1,000 theories. Guilt crawled under his skin. Sometimes grown-ups make choices that seem confusing. Maybe she had reasons. Fear, misunderstandings, heartbreak, he added silently. The nurse softly ushered them back so the ICU staff could do their routine checks. Katie was sniffling again, and Liam's eyes brimmed with tears he tried to hide. Kyle guided them to a quieter corner. I'm gonna get you home soon, my place, he said. We'll figure everything out, okay? The kids nodded slowly, exhaustion sagging their shoulders. Liam rubbed his eyes. Katie clung to Kyle's arm. Even in his swirling confusion, he felt a surprising surge of warmth that they were willing to trust him. Mrs. Ellison reappeared. The emergency guardianship is approved for now. If Miss Collins remains unconscious or unable to care for them, you'll have extended custody. We can reevaluate if things change. Kyle exhaled. Thank you, he said with genuine relief. She nodded. You can take them whenever you're ready, but... Her voice softened. I think they might want a little more time here, or at least to feel sure their mother is stable. Kyle understood. He turned back to Liam and Katie, crouching down again so they wouldn't have to crane their necks. Would you like to stay a bit longer or head to my car? We can grab some dinner, whatever you like. Katie's lip trembled. I'm not hungry. Liam gave a small shrug. I guess we can go, but can we come back tomorrow? Absolutely, Kyle said. We'll come back as often as we want. We'll talk to the doctors, see if there's any update. He paused. We'll do it together. The children nodded, and something settled in Kyle's chest, an unfamiliar sense of responsibility, but also a new kind of determination. He'd run multi-million-dollar expansions, negotiated high-stakes deals across the globe. But none of that prepared him for this moment. Taking 2 scared kids home, uncertain if their mother, the woman he once loved, would ever wake up. As he walked them back through the corridor, the overhead fluorescent lights hummed, and the fading afternoon sun cast long shadows on the walls. Each step felt like crossing a threshold he'd never imagined. But for now, he had to stay calm and do what needed to be done. At the elevator, Katie slipped her small hand into his. Her palm was cold. He gave a reassuring squeeze, swallowing hard. I won't let you down, he vowed silently to the kids, and maybe to June, too. By the time Kyle steered his SUV out of the hospital's parking lot, dusk was settling over the mountainous skyline. The winding road up to his estate curved along the ridge, offering glimpses of valleys bathed in purple twilight. In the back seat, Katie stared out the window with huge eyes, as though the world had turned upside down. Liam fiddled with the seatbelt buckle, quiet and introspective. The house, more like a sprawling lodge, came into view after a final turn. With its tall, rustic timbers and modern glass panels, the place towered on the edge of a steep slope overlooking pine forests below. Solar panels lined one side of the slanted roof, a proud testament to Kyle's clean energy empire. As soon as they parked, he turned to the kids. So, this is my home. It's just the 3 of us tonight. Katie swallowed, gaze flicking from the large front door to the wraparound deck. It's really big. Mom never told us about you, Liam added carefully. There was no accusation in his voice, just a truthful observation. Kyle nodded, forcing a tight smile. I know. Let's go inside and get settled. I'll show you your rooms. He pressed the remote to open the garage door, leading them in through a side entrance. Inside, the foyer soared 2 stories, with wooden beams crossing the ceiling and a wide glass wall giving a spectacular view of the valley. But the space felt cold now, echoing with emptiness. They walked through a corridor, soft recessed lights glowing against the rough stone walls. Katie's footsteps were tentative. "It's kind of quiet." "Yeah," Kyle acknowledged. "I live alone." He paused by a door that opened to a spare bedroom. "I'll set up a room for you two. Or do you each want your own?" The siblings exchanged a glance. Liam said, "Maybe we can share, just for now." "Sure," Kyle said. "That's absolutely fine." He flipped a switch, illuminating a tidy guest room with a queen bed, a small dresser, and framed art of mountain landscapes. He frowned. There were no colorful sheets, no stuffed animals. Suddenly, it struck him how stark this must seem. "I'll ask Lillian to grab some things in the morning," he explained, an apologetic twist in his voice. "Whatever you need, clothes, toys, anything. I promise." Katie sat on the edge of the bed, her small hands pressed against the comforter. Liam lingered near the window, peering into the evening darkness. The only sound was the faint hum of the central heating. Kyle cleared his throat. "Are you guys hungry now? I know earlier you said you weren't, but maybe some snacks? I can figure something out in the kitchen." He realized how unprepared he was to care for children, especially two traumatized 6-year-olds. Liam shrugged. "I guess I could eat something." Katie didn't protest, so Kyle led them downstairs, flipping on more lights as they went. The kitchen was sleek stainless steel appliances, granite counters, a big island. Kyle rummaged through the fridge, finding mostly leftover salads, a half-eaten takeout container, and a stash of energy drinks. He felt a surge of embarrassment. It's not well stocked." He shut the door. "What if we order delivery?" Liam's eyes flickered with cautious relief. "Okay. Pizza sound good? Or maybe burgers?" Katie's voice was small but clear. "Mom usually cooks healthy stuff, but pizza might be okay," she said, almost as if expecting to be scolded. Kyle offered a gentle smile. "Pizza it is, then." He grabbed his phone and placed an order from the one local pizza joint that delivered to this altitude. While waiting, he showed them the living area, an open concept with a giant leather sofa facing a stone fireplace. The kids hovered near the fireplace, looking nervous and out of place. A few minutes later, footsteps echoed from the foyer. Lillian stepped in, a neat black tote in hand. She halted, noticing the kids. "Hello," she said warmly. "I'm Lillian. I work with Kyle." Katie nodded, a bit shy. Liam just gave her a polite wave. Lillian turned to Kyle. "I brought some blankets and toiletries from the store. Figured they might need extras." "Thank you," Kyle said. "That's helpful. Pizza's on the way." Lillian approached the children, voice kind. "If you need anything, pajamas, toothbrushes, just let me know. We'll get it handled." The kids murmured thanks. Katie clutched her arms around herself, eyes darting around. Kyle sensed she was moments from tears again. He gently steered them to the couch. "Want to watch something on TV while we wait?" He rarely used the massive flat screen, but maybe a cartoon would offer distraction. Liam nodded, remote in hand. He found a channel playing some animated show with bright colors. Katie let out a tiny exhale, relaxing just a fraction. Lillian pulled Kyle aside, lowering her voice. "Everything okay?" "The social worker called. She said the guardianship arrangement is provisional, and you might be taking a paternity test soon." "Yeah," Kyle sighed. "It's complicated. I can't walk away from them. You understand?" Lillian's expression softened. "Of course. I've never seen you look so determined like this is personal." Kyle gave a curt nod. "Because it is." The pizza arrived, and they ate in the kitchen, perched on bar stools, the overhead pendant lights casting a warm glow. The kids munched quietly, Katie picking off olives, Liam meticulously folding each slice. The hush weighed on Kyle's chest. He wanted to fill the silence, reassure them everything would be fine, but he knew it was too early for that promise. Eventually, the kids trudged upstairs to the guest room, heavy-lidded from the day's emotional drain. Kyle helped them settle, making sure the new blankets Lillian brought were tucked around them. Katie whispered, "Thank you." as she clutched a borrowed pillow. Right before leaving, Kyle paused at the doorway. Liam's small voice stopped him. "Kyle is our mom. Is she your girlfriend?" He swallowed, heart twisting. "We used to be very close. It's complicated." Liam nodded, as if that word complicated explained everything. Kyle switched off the main light, leaving a soft lamp on so they wouldn't be in total darkness. Downstairs, Lillian waited near the front door, coat in hand. "I'll be heading out," she said, voice quiet. "But call if you need anything. Tomorrow morning I'll come back with more supplies. Kid-friendly food, clothes from June's place if needed." "Thank you," Kyle said, meaning it. Once alone, he lingered in the living room, the hush of the house magnifying every thought. He paced to the floor-to-ceiling window. Night had fully descended. In the valley below, a scatter of lights twinkled from the small town. Farther up the slope, pines bent in the wind. He pressed a hand to the cold glass, letting his mind race back to June. She'd vanished 5 years ago. He had always suspected something unsaid, some heartbreak they never worked through. Did she think he wasn't ready to be a father? Did she truly believe he'd see the twins as a burden? The ache of that possibility stung. Glancing at his phone, he considered calling the hospital for an update, but knew they'd contact him if anything changed. Instead, he tapped a text to Lillian. "Thank you for helping tonight. Let's meet at 9 a.m. tomorrow. We'll talk next steps for the kids and handle the rest of my schedule." K. Then he set the phone aside. For once, business was the last thing on his mind. His reflection in the glass looked different, less sure, more vulnerable. He couldn't ignore the surge of unfamiliar protectiveness that bloomed when he saw Katie and Liam's frightened eyes. Maybe he was out of his depth, but he wasn't about to abandon them. That was clear as day. He trudged upstairs to his own bedroom. The wide space felt emptier than ever. The custom king-size bed, the stone fireplace in the corner, the abstract paintings, none of it gave him comfort now. He changed into sweatpants and a shirt, then stared at his reflection in the mirror. Dark hair neatly cropped, shoulders tense. He looked older than he remembered, tired lines around his eyes from late nights working or dealing with restless thoughts of June. Closing his eyes, he pictured June's bright laugh from years ago, the way she twirled around his living room to silly music. He recalled how she used to talk about opening a dance center for underprivileged kids. She made that dream real, he thought, recalling the nurse's mention of a community program. And she did it alone. Regret swelled in his chest. He slid under the covers, but sleep felt impossible. Too many questions circled. When would June wake up? Would she explain why she left? Could he even handle her reasoning? And how would the twins react if the test confirmed he was their father? Eventually, exhaustion dragged him under. His dreams were chaotic images of mountain roads, hospital lights, and June's face drifting in and out like a ghost. The only constant was the echo of 2 small voices calling him from the darkness. Kyle woke to the thin morning light streaming through his windows. For a moment, he forgot everything June's accident. The children sleeping down the hall until he turned over and saw the phone blinking with messages. Then reality slammed back. He got up quickly, threw on a fresh shirt and jeans. Checking the time, 7 a.m., he had an hour before Lillian arrived with more supplies. He peeked into the guest room. Katie and Liam were still asleep, curled up beneath the new blankets. The sight tugged at his heart. He tiptoed out. Downstairs, he rummaged in the kitchen, found a dusty bag of pancake mix in the back of a cupboard. He hadn't a clue how old it was. Grimacing, he decided maybe scrambled eggs would be safer. He tried to recall how to cook them somewhere in his memory. He had basic instructions. As he cracked eggs into a bowl, he heard soft footsteps. Turning, he saw Katie in the doorway, hugging her arms around her middle. She wore an oversized t-shirt Lillian must have bought last night. Her hair was rumpled. "Morning," she said in a timid voice. "Morning," Kyle replied, forcing a smile. "Hungry?" She shrugged. "Kinda." He gestured to the eggs. "I'm attempting breakfast. No promises on the result." She gave a tiny nod, stepping closer. "Mom, usually she does this fancy swirl thing with eggs, but I guess normal scrambled is good too." Her mention of June made Kyle's chest ache. "I'll do my best," he promised. "You want to help me whisk them?" She paused, then stepped around the counter. Okay. She grabbed the whisk, stirring tentatively. Kyle guided her, adding a splash of milk. Something about sharing this small task felt weirdly intimate, like he was stepping onto shaky ground, a life he'd never dared imagine. Liam trudged in next, rubbing his eyes. The boy sat at the kitchen island, chin propped on his palm. Is there any news about Mom? Kyle placed the pan on the stove, butter sizzling. Let me give the hospital a call, see if there's an update. In the meantime, you can maybe set the table? Liam nodded and slid off the stool. As Kyle turned the stove to medium heat, he dialed Silvercrest's main line. After a brief hold, a nurse came on, explaining that June was stable but still unconscious, heavily sedated from the operation. No major change, though her vitals were decent. He relayed the news to the kids, seeing their faces flicker with both relief and disappointment. Nothing had worsened, but no miraculous improvement either. They ate the eggs slightly overcooked but edible and sipped orange juice Lillian had dropped off last night. Katie offered a faint smile. They're not bad, she said quietly. Liam shrugged. A little rubbery, but okay. Kyle almost laughed. I'll keep practicing. Soon after, Lillian arrived, arms laden with grocery bags and a few plastic bags from a department store. Morning, everyone, she called. I brought cereal, fruit, fresh clothes for you two, figured I'd guess your sizes. She unpacked while the kids hovered, picking out shirts and socks. Katie's eyes lit up at a pink hoodie. I love this, she whispered, hugging the garment. Liam was more subdued, but Kyle saw a flicker of gratitude on his face as he grabbed a Star Wars-themed shirt. Thanks, he mumbled. Lillian then produced a small stuffed bear from the bag. I thought you might need a friend, she said gently, handing it to Katie. Katie's eyes got misty, but she just nodded, hugging the toy close. With basic necessities handled, Kyle considered the day's plan. I'd like to head to the hospital again, see if we can speak to the doctor in person. I also need to talk to them about that DNA test. Lillian gave him a sympathetic glance. I can come along for moral support, or I can handle any phone calls or scheduling you're missing. Kyle glanced at the kids. How about you two? You want to come with me to check on your mom? Liam and Katie exchanged a look. Yes, they said in unison. So they all piled into Kyle's SUV, Lillian riding shotgun, the kids in back. The morning light was brighter now, illuminating the jagged peaks of the surrounding mountains. The crisp air and clear skies hinted at a mild day, but Kyle could still feel the tension in his bones. Down at the hospital, Mrs. Ellison, the social worker, was already waiting near the reception area. She greeted them with a quick nod. Morning. I've scheduled the paternal test for this afternoon, Mr. Anderson. The lab technician can expedite results, but it could still take a couple days. Kyle swallowed, feeling the swirl of emotions again. Understood. They made their way to the ICU, where a doctor in green scrubs updated them. June's internal injuries had been stabilized, but she remained in a medically induced coma. It might be some days before we know if she can breathe on her own, and we'll have to see how she responds to sedation reduction. Standing by the glass that separated them from June, Katie looked heartbreakingly small, hugging her stuffed bear. Liam's voice was quiet. She's a dancer. She can't just be stuck like this. The doctor gave a compassionate smile. Her body needs rest to heal. We do see patients recover from these injuries if they're healthy to begin with. Miss Collins is young and strong. Kyle placed a gentle hand on each child's shoulder, not knowing how else to comfort them. Later, while the twins spoke softly with a nurse about their mom's routine, Kyle pulled Lillian aside. I keep thinking about all those times I tried to find out why June left. Did she think I was too buried in my expansions? Maybe she was right. I was a workaholic. Lillian nodded empathetically. But you never knew about the kids? Not a clue, Kyle whispered, jaw tight. She never sent a letter, never called. If they turn out to be mine, my God, I missed 6 years of their lives. He raked a hand through his hair, guilt churning. Lillian touched his arm. One step at a time, Kyle. You're here now, doing the best you can. After finishing the DNA test forms, they reconvened with the kids. Katie looked up, a flicker of hope in her eyes. When Mommy wakes up, do you think she'll come home with us? Us. Kyle felt an odd warmth at that word. That's the plan, he said, voice low with conviction. We'll make sure she has a place to recover, a safe place. As they walked out, Katie and Liam clung to each other. Kyle decided to try lightening the mood. Hey, how about we do something fun before heading home? There's a little cafe down the block. They've got hot chocolate and pastries. Interested? Liam perked up. Hot chocolate, sure. Katie nodded, hugging her bear. A short walk later, they were inside a cozy cafe with warm wood floors and local art on the walls. The sweet scent of cinnamon and fresh bread filled the air. They found a corner table. Kyle ordered hot chocolate for the kids, coffee for himself and Lillian. A swirl of whipped cream made Katie smile for the first time that day. Conversation stayed quiet, but at least they seemed more relaxed. Lillian tactfully checked messages, noticing a text from a board member about Kyle's missed meeting. He just gave a short, "Tell them I'll reschedule." He had bigger priorities now. They returned to the SUV as the sun climbed higher, promising a bright midday. Through the window, Kyle spotted the mountain range that circled Silvercrest Hospital. He couldn't help thinking how those imposing peaks mirrored the enormity of the situation, beautiful, daunting, and impossible to ignore. In the back seat, Katie dozed off, lulled by the warmth of the sun and the emotional exhaustion of the last 24 hours. Liam stared out the window, expression unreadable. Kyle asked softly, "You okay back there?" The boy sighed. "I guess. Just worried about Mom." Kyle understood that. "I know, bud. Me too." Lillian shot Kyle a gentle smile from the passenger side, then spoke softly. "They'll be all right. June is strong." Kyle gripped the steering wheel, heart heavy and determined at once. She has to be, he thought, because they all deserved a chance to mend the wounds of the past. As they turned onto the winding road leading to the hilltop estate, Kyle took one more look at the peaceful form of Katie, the pensive face of Liam, and he silently swore he wouldn't let them down. If fate had given him this second chance with June and with these children, he'd fight to prove he was worthy of it. A crack of morning sun slid through the tall pines, casting long shadows on the narrow road that cut through the small mountain town. Kyle Anderson gripped the steering wheel, his eyes flicking to the rearview mirror where Katie and Liam sat quietly. A tinge of anxiety churned in his gut. This was the day he'd take them to June Collins's old place, her private haven he'd never known existed. The local architecture morphed from rustic cabins to humble bungalows as they descended into the outskirts of the main township. Snowmelt dripped from roofs, leaving wet patches on the sidewalks. The world had a bright crispness, but Kyle felt anything but sunny. He'd been up half the night, thoughts swirling about how June had vanished from his life. 5 years. 5 whole years, long enough for her to raise these 2 kids without him. He glanced at the passenger seat, where Lillian, his ever-efficient assistant, was scanning some notes on her phone. She looked up sympathetically. "Remember, we're just here to collect essentials. Clothes for the twins, maybe some of June's personal items. The social worker said a thorough search can wait until June recovers." Kyle nodded. "Sure." But he couldn't ignore the sense of trespassing. This was June's home, her safe space, and he'd be walking in uninvited. They pulled up to a modest single-story house. Pale yellow paint peeled near the windows, and a small wooden porch overlooked a scrappy flower bed. A hush settled in the car. Katie let out a soft sigh. "That's where we live," she said, voice catching. Liam peered at the familiar yard, the battered mailbox leaning to one side. "It's weird being here without Mom," he murmured. Kyle swallowed, shutting off the engine. "We'll be quick, all right? Just gather what you need." He forced a reassuring smile. "Then we'll go grab lunch in town, maybe pick up groceries." As they climbed out, the mountain air smelled faintly of damp pine. Mrs. Ellison, the social worker, had given Kyle a spare key. He unlocked the front door, carefully stepping inside. The living room was tiny but warm in its own way. Overstuffed thrift store couches, bright crocheted throws, little handcrafted knickknacks on shelves. A row of children's drawings pinned to one wall stick figures of Katie, Liam, and June. Lillian let out a quiet gasp. "It's cozy," she said gently. Katie moved to a low bookshelf by the wall, picking up a small figurine of a ballerina. "Mom's friend gave her this when she opened the dance center," she explained. "She said it reminded her of real grace under pressure." Liam headed toward a short hallway. "Our room's over here. We can pack some clothes." He paused. "Kyle, can you help me reach the top shelf?" The request, so ordinary, hit Kyle in the chest. "Sure, buddy," he said, following the boy to the shared bedroom. It was painted a soft mint green, the floor scattered with crayons, building blocks, and a half-finished puzzle. A bunk bed took up most of the space, stuffed animals perched on every rung. Katie joined them, rummaging for shirts and socks. Meanwhile, Lillian opened a small dresser and carefully folded items into a tote bag. The children pointed out jackets, pajamas, and shoes. For a moment, the mood felt almost normal, like a routine packing for a weekend trip. But then Katie opened the closet, stooping low to pull out a battered cardboard box. She froze. Liam glanced over, eyes widening. "Is that Mom's box?" Katie nodded, biting her lip. "We're not supposed to open it. She keeps personal stuff there." Kyle stepped closer, pulse thumping. "We don't have to go through it if it's private," he said quietly. Yet Katie's eyes flickered with curiosity. "She never told us what's inside," she murmured. "But maybe it's important." A swirl of guilt and longing tugged at Kyle. Every fiber told him to respect June's boundaries, but a part of him felt compelled to know the reasons she'd vanished. Did this box hold the final puzzle pieces? Tentatively, Katie set it aside. "Maybe we'll leave it," she said, uncertain. "Mom might get upset." Lillian, noticing the tension, offered a gentle interruption. "We have enough clothes for a while, right? Let's not intrude on Missy Collins's things unless truly necessary." Relief and regret warred in Kyle's gut. "Yeah," he managed, letting out a breath. "We should respect her privacy." They continued packing. Then, as Kyle slid a pair of Liam's sneakers into the tote, his gaze drifted to June's bedroom door slightly ajar. He tried to ignore the pull, but after a moment, Lillian gave him an encouraging nod. "It might help to see if there are any medical papers or bills lying around," she said softly. "The hospital might need them." So he tiptoed down the hall and entered the small master bedroom. A faint floral scent lingered, maybe from the lotion or perfume she used. The bed was unmade, sheets twisted, as if she'd left in a hurry that morning for the school run. A framed photo on the nightstand caught his eye. It showed June, hair in a ponytail, standing beside a cluster of young dancers in a mirrored studio. Her smile was radiant. He set the photo down, heart aching. Then he noticed a notebook on the bedside table, its cover embroidered with dancing silhouettes. Hesitating, he opened it. Pages filled with June's handwriting swam into view. The first lines made him dizzy. "I wish I could have told Kyle. But he was so focused on building his empire, I didn't want to chain him down. He deserved to chase that dream without guilt." His throat constricted. Page after page, she wrote about her fears. How she discovered she was pregnant right after they'd argued about him traveling overseas for expansions. How she believed he saw kids as a later thing, not ready for them now. "I love him enough to let him go," one entry read, words underlined. "But it hurts every day." Raw heartbreak seeped through the ink. Kyle's chest felt tight, eyes burning. A clatter at the door made him snap the notebook shut. It was Katie. She blinked, noticing tears glistening in his eyes. "Are you okay?" Gently, he placed the notebook aside. "I'm fine," he lied. "Just found some notes about how much your mom loves you guys." It was partly true. There were entries about Katie's first steps, Liam's first words, moments Kyle had missed. Katie bit her lip. "Mom always said she wanted us to have a good life. She never told us about you." A flicker of hurt lingered in her tone. Kyle inhaled, struggling to keep composure. She must have had reasons. Reasons I never gave her a chance to explain, he thought. Let's finish up here, yeah?" Soon they loaded everything into his SUV. The kids sat quietly, hugging small backpacks of favorite items. As they pulled away from the yellow house, Kyle felt like he was leaving behind a piece of his own soul fragments of a life he could have had. When they dropped Lillian at the office for a separate errand, Kyle asked the twins if they wanted lunch. Burgers? Sandwiches? Or something from the diner near the hospital? Katie shrugged. I'm okay with anything. Liam just said, doesn't matter to me. Both looked drained. Kyle's stomach knotted. He wanted to bring back their spark. These kids deserved more than gloom and confusion. All right, he murmured. Let's try that family-owned diner. They serve the best grilled cheese in town. No one argued. A few minutes later, they settled into a booth at Maple Ridge Diner, the warm scent of bacon grease and fresh coffee floating in the air. The kids sipped water, eyes drifting over the simple menu. Kyle forced a crooked smile. I used to come here with your mom a long time ago, actually. They do a killer apple pie. Katie's gaze flicked up. Really? Mom never said. Kyle tried not to let the hurt show. We parted ways before she moved here, I guess. He tapped the table lightly. Anyway, I'd like us to try that pie. Maybe it can be a new memory. Liam mustered a thin smile. Sure. The food arrived and they ate in near silence. But after a while, the siblings began chatting about small things, how they hoped their mom's dance center kids were okay, whether they'd get behind on school assignments. Kyle listened, nodding gently, feeling awkward but determined to stay in their orbit. When the pie slices came, Katie's eyes lit up for just a moment. She took a bite, sweet cinnamon filling her senses. This is good, she whispered. Liam took a forkful. It's better than I expected. Kyle exhaled, gratitude washing over him at the small success. Maybe I can do something right for once, he told himself. He pictured that notebook in June's bedroom, her heartbreak spelled out in black and white. She'd carried so much alone fear of holding him back, fear of raising kids with someone not ready to be a dad. Well, now he intended to prove her wrong. He was ready, even if it came 5 years late. As they left the diner, Katie clung to her little backpack. Liam clasped Kyle's hand for the first time, a quick, almost shy gesture. Kyle's heart lurched. Outside, clouds drifted across the bright sky, a breeze rustling the roadside pines. He inhaled the fresh mountain air, letting it ground him. Today had peeled back a layer of June's secret struggles. Though it stung, it also fueled him. He wouldn't fail these kids. Not again. And if fate gave him another shot with June, he'd move heaven and earth to prove that he wasn't the same man she'd run from. Morning light filtered through the expansive windows of Kyle's hilltop estate. Katie and Liam were asleep in their newly arranged bedroom, while Kyle bustled around the kitchen with a mix of nerves and determination. This was his first true weekday as a stand-in parent. No corporate conference calls on the immediate horizon, no easy fallback plan if something went wrong. A glance at the clock told him they had an hour before the school day started. He rummaged the fridge thanks to Lillian's shopping spree. It was finely stocked with bread, milk, cereal, fruit. He set out a couple of bowls and poured cereal for the kids, then realized maybe they'd want toast, too, or fruit. He started slicing an apple, only to nick his finger with the knife. Ouch, he hissed, gritting his teeth as a drop of blood welled. Smooth move, Anderson. Still, he kept going. He wanted these kids to see him as more than the clueless stranger in their lives. He bandaged his finger, then gingerly carried everything to the dining nook. The corridor creaked a sign that at least one child was awake. Liam shuffled in first, hair rumpled, wearing a shirt with a cartoon robot on the front. He rubbed his eyes. Morning, he mumbled. Morning, bud, Kyle said, forcing a bright tone. Got cereal, sliced apples, some yogurt if you want it. Liam eyed the spread. It's fine. Thanks. He slid onto a chair, still half asleep, and poured milk over the cereal. A faint chomp-chomp sound filled the quiet air. Kyle exhaled, tension unspooling. Maybe he wasn't messing up so far. Katie appeared next, carrying her stuffed bear. She blinked at the table. You made all this? Kyle chuckled, remembering how little effort it actually took. Yeah, simple stuff, really. But I'm learning. Katie placed her bear on a side chair and chose an apple slice. Mom always makes smoothies, she said wistfully, voice tinged with longing. But this is nice too. He offered a gentle nod. Maybe I can learn smoothies next. We'll figure it out, okay? She bit into the fruit, nodding. For a moment, the three of them just ate quietly, the mountain view outside tinted pale gold by the rising sun. Liam finished his cereal quickly, then tapped the table. So what time do we leave for school? Kyle checked his watch. We should head out in about 30 minutes. Is that good? Yeah. Liam hopped off the chair. I'll go get changed. Katie stood as well, giving Kyle a small smile. Thanks, Dad. She froze immediately, cheeks coloring. Sorry, I didn't... His heart twisted. Dad. She'd said it so naturally, then panicked. He forced down the rush of emotion. It's okay, Katie, he said softly. You can call me whatever you're comfortable with. No pressure. She offered him a shy nod, then disappeared down the hall. Kyle exhaled, running a hand through his hair. The word Dad echoed in his mind like a promise, both exhilarating and terrifying. 20 minutes later, they piled into Kyle's SUV. Katie insisted on sitting behind the passenger seat, Liam behind the driver. The winding drive down the mountain was quieter than usual. Kyle tried to lighten the mood. What's your favorite subject in school? He asked, glancing at them in the rear view. Art, Katie said immediately. I like painting. Mom taught me some dance moves too, but I like drawing better. I like math, Liam added. Numbers make sense, no confusion. Kyle laughed softly. That's good. I used to be a math whiz too back in the day. Memories flickered of solving advanced equations in college. But real life, he reflected wryly, was far more complicated than any formula. As they neared the town's small elementary school, the parking lot filled with parents and kids. A modest building with a cheerful mural on one wall depicted mountains, pine trees, and little cartoon explorers. Kyle pulled into a spot, stepping out to help the twins with their backpacks. You sure you don't want me to walk you inside? He asked them. Katie shuffled her feet. You can, she replied, a bit uncertain. So they strode toward the entrance together. The hallway smelled of crayons and slightly sour milk from the cafeteria. Liam pointed out his classroom door. Katie's was next to it. Just then, a kindly teacher with silver-streaked hair approached Mrs. Turner for Katie's class. She recognized the kids instantly. Katie, Liam, I've been so worried. How's your mom? Katie's eyes clouded. She's in the hospital, still asleep. Mrs. Turner's expression softened. Then her gaze turned to Kyle, obviously unsure who he was. He extended a hand. Hi, I'm Kyle Anderson, a family friend. I'm taking care of them for now. Mrs. Turner blinked, but a smile spread. Of course. I'm just glad they have someone to look after them. June spoke about them every time she volunteered. She's a wonderful mother. That small affirmation struck Kyle squarely in the heart. I should have known how wonderful she was. He nodded. She is. Another teacher emerged, Mr. Davis from Liam's class, offering a similar reaction. Both teachers assured Kyle they'd keep an extra eye on the twins, understanding the stress they were under. Katie slipped off to her desk, turning to wave meekly at Kyle. Liam gave him a quick nod of thanks before disappearing into his classroom. The bell rang. Kyle stood there for a moment, feeling out of place among the swirl of children and parents. Then he turned and walked back to his SUV, footsteps echoing in the now empty hallway. A sense of pride mingled with sadness in his chest. This is fatherhood, he realized, showing up even when it's uncomfortable, making sure they're safe and supported. By midday, he'd ended up at a local coffee shop, checking his phone for any updates on June's condition. One new message from the hospital said no change, still stable, no sign of consciousness yet. Another from Lillian. Board meeting tomorrow at 9. Need confirmation if you're attending. He sighed. Old responsibilities had not vanished, but his priorities had changed. He typed a quick response. Reschedule. Family emergency remains top priority. Then he paused, rereading the words, a surge of conviction flooding him. Because standing there outside that school, seeing Katie and Liam step into their classes, it felt more real, more important than any board meeting or business expansion had ever felt. He wasn't naive. He knew it'd be rocky. But maybe that was the cost of forging a real connection. Wrapping up calls and errands, he swung by the school in the late afternoon to pick them up. The instant they spotted him in the lot, A strange warmth bloomed in his chest like a flicker of hope. He prayed June would wake soon so he could tell her, "I'm here. I'm not running anymore. Let's do this together." Late afternoon sun spilled across the reception desk at Silvercrest Hospital. The overhead lights cast a softer glow now, warding off the early evening shadows. Kyle arrived with Katie and Liam in tow, determined to check on June's progress. The siblings clutched small drawings they'd made in school cards with hearts, stick figures, and scrawled "Get well soon" messages. A nurse at the front recognized Kyle. "They moved Miss Collins to a quieter ICU room," she said. "Still sedated, but more stable." She gave a gentle smile at the children. "You can visit, but keep it short. She needs rest." As they approached the ICU room, the hush deepened. Machines beeped steadily, the rhythmic sound of June's monitors. Through the glass, they saw her lying motionless, an IV in her arm, a faint bruise fading on her temple. Liam clenched his jaw, while Katie's eyes shimmered with tears she tried to hold back. Kyle carefully pushed the door open, letting them step in. White curtains partially shrouded the bed, but the overhead track lighting allowed them to see her peaceful, if pale, face. The kids stayed at the foot of the bed, uncertain. "Hey, June," Kyle said softly, voice wavering. "We're back." He set a gentle hand on the edge of the bed, mindful not to disturb any wires. Katie tiptoed closer, placing her handmade card on the bedside table. Liam followed suit, slipping his own drawing next to it. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Katie whispered, "Mom, can you hear us?" Silence answered. A machine beeped in steady intervals. Kyle swallowed, heart aching. He recalled the bulletins from the doctors. She was improving internally, but the coma might last longer. Still, a sliver of hope flickered. They said she had shown minor reflexes. Just then, a nurse stepped in, wearing lavender scrubs. "Time for vitals," she said kindly. She adjusted the monitors, checked June's pupils with a small flashlight. Kyle watched intently. The nurse turned off the flashlight, writing notes on a chart. "There's a bit more reflex movement than yesterday," she reported softly, glimpsing Kyle's question in his eyes. "It's not a guarantee, but it's encouraging." Katie inhaled sharply. "Reflex? Sometimes people in comas can move a finger, twitch an eyelid," the nurse explained. "It can be the body's way of trying to wake up." Kyle locked eyes with the nurse. "Thank you," he whispered, relieved at even the smallest improvement. When the nurse left, Liam reached out a trembling hand, resting it atop June's forearm. He said nothing, but his eyes brimmed with longing. Katie snuggled closer to Kyle, leaning against his side. He held her gently, smoothing her hair as a father might. "Mom, we were waiting," Katie whispered. "We want you to come home." Kyle felt tears threaten, but he kept it together for their sake. Instead, he murmured a quiet prayer in his head. "Come back, June, please." Minutes later, as they prepared to leave, Dr. Halston, the physician overseeing June, crossed their path in the hallway. The older woman gave a polite nod. "Mr. Anderson, good to see you. The nurse said you were in the room. Mind stepping into the consult area for a moment?" He glanced at the kids, hesitant. "Doctor." Halston gave them a reassuring smile. "It'll be brief." So Lillian, who'd arrived moments ago, volunteered to stay with the kids in the waiting area. Kyle followed Dr. Halston into a small, glass-walled office. She didn't waste time. "We've done some neurological tests. Miss Collins shows slight improvement. Her pupils are more reactive. We can't predict precisely when she'll fully regain consciousness, but we're hopeful." Kyle exhaled. "That's the best news I've heard today." "There's another matter," the doctor added. "The lab processed a paternity test on file, correct? You might want to check with them if you haven't already." He stiffened. That test had slipped his mind in the swirl of fatherly duties. "Thank you. I'll do that." They exchanged a few more words about June's therapy plan. Kyle then found the hospital's lab. A short exchange with a lab technician, some ID verification, and an envelope changed hands. Kyle clutched it, pulse hammering. He opened it alone in a quiet corner, scanning the bold line near the bottom. Paternity probability, 99, 9%. A swirl of relief, fear, and bittersweet joy cascaded through him. as if 1,000 puzzle pieces locked into place. Katie and Liam were, beyond doubt, his children. He'd known it in his gut, but seeing the cold scientific proof still sent his heart racing. Lillian spotted him on the way back, noticing the paper in his hand. "You okay?" she asked softly. Kyle let out a shaky laugh. "Yeah," he said, holding up the results. "They're mine, officially." Lillian's eyes lit with relief. "I'm glad. Now you can be recognized as their father, no more question marks." He nodded, a million emotions tangling inside him. "Yes. And man, I wish June was awake so I could talk to her about it." They made their way to the waiting area, where Katie and Liam were perched on chairs, flipping through a children's magazine. Kyle kneeled before them, heart pounding. They deserved to know, but how to say it? He cleared his throat. "Guys, I wanted to share something." He held up the envelope. "You remember the test we did? It's official now. I'm your dad." Katie's face shifted from confusion to cautious happiness. Liam's eyebrows rose. "Really?" Kyle felt his voice catch. "Really. And I know this is weird since you never knew me until a few days ago, but I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." For a second, no one spoke. Then Katie burst forward, hugging him tight around the neck. The force nearly knocked him over. Liam joined in, arms around both of them. Kyle's eyes burned. He blinked away tears, letting the warmth of that embrace fill every empty corner of his heart. Lillian discreetly stepped aside, giving them privacy. Other people in the waiting area shot curious glances, but Kyle didn't care. He just held on to his kids in a bundle of hope and relief. Eventually, the hug broke. The hug, Liam sniffed, wiping an eye. "What about Mom?" he asked, voice trembling. "She's the one who she's always taken care of us. She never said anything about you." Kyle nodded, sorrow pinching his chest. "She must have had reasons. When she wakes, we'll sort it out. But until then, I promise I'll do my best to be what you need. Okay?" They both nodded, eyes shining with a swirl of uncertainty and budding trust. Katie said softly, "Thanks, Dad." This time she didn't stumble over the word. She said it with quiet conviction, like it belonged there. It was nearly midnight by the time Kyle tucked Katie and Liam into bed. The glow of a soft lamp lit their room, revealing new posters on the walls, kind gestures from Lillian to make the space feel less sterile. Outside, moonlight brushed the pine trees, casting faint silhouettes across the windows. The kids had dozed off quickly tonight, an emotional day had drained them. In the hallway, Kyle paused, listening to their gentle breathing. Warmth and responsibility pulsed in his chest. The DNA test sealed the truth. He was their father, but it was the day-to-day reality driving them to school, comforting them at the hospital that truly made it real. He retreated to the living room, flicking on a table lamp. The large fireplace sat cold, but he didn't bother lighting it. Instead, he dropped onto the leather sofa, shoulders sagging with fatigue. His phone lay on the coffee table, silent. On impulse, he picked it up, scrolling through old photos. None of June, obviously, since she'd vanished before smartphone snapshots became a habit. He had only a few old pictures on his computer, locked away in a folder he rarely opened because it hurt too much. Pressing the phone to his forehead, he closed his eyes. Memories swirled. June laughing in his arms, the two of them dancing after a charity gala, her teasing him about how he was too laser-focused on work. The night she left, a swirl of tension neither had fully explained. He'd been traveling, pushing for an overseas deal. She'd been quiet but upset. He recalled her teary-eyed confession that she felt overshadowed, that he was building an empire with no room for her dreams. He'd brushed it off at the time, just a few more months, and I'll have everything stable. Then we can talk about starting a family. But she'd vanished before that day came. Now, the heartbreak made sense. She was already pregnant, convinced he wouldn't want to share that journey. The knowledge stung like salt in an open wound. He set the phone down, exhaling shakily. I was so blind, he thought. I was so eager to expand my business, I forgot to look beside me. Unable to sit still, he wandered to the big window overlooking the valley. Silvery moonlight revealed a sea of pine tops below, the gentle slopes leading down to the cluster of lights that marked the town. In the far distance, the hospital's faint glow illuminated the mountain pass. He pictured June lying in that ICU bed, the beep of monitors, the hush of sedation. She'd be angry if she could see how he'd let fatherhood blindside him, or maybe she'd be relieved he was stepping up. His reflection in the glass wore a haunted expression. Slowly, he pressed a palm to the cool surface. "I'm sorry, June," he whispered, voice thick, "for not being there, for letting you believe you had to run." He hoped to be better for Katie, for Liam, for June. He couldn't fix the lost years, but he could make the future different. A small sound startled him. Turning, he found Liam in his pajamas, standing at the edge of the living room. The boy fiddled with the hem of his shirt. "I had a bad dream," Liam mumbled. Kyle strode over. "Hey, it's okay. Want to talk about it?" Liam shrugged. "Just I dreamed Mom never woke up." A vice clamped around Kyle's heart. He rested a hand gently on Liam's shoulder. "She's fighting to come back," he assured, though fear gnawed at him too. "You heard the doctor, she's improving in small ways. We just have to keep faith." Liam sniffed, tears glistening. I need her." Kyle swallowed the lump in his throat. "I know, buddy. We all do." For a moment they stood there, father and son, bathed in moonlight. Then Kyle guided Liam back to bed, tucking the covers around him. The boy clutched a plush dinosaur. "Thanks," he whispered. After ensuring Liam was settled, Kyle left the room. Exhaustion weighted his limbs, but he knew sleep would be elusive. He returned to the living room, determined to gather his scattered thoughts. On the coffee table lay a stack of business documents he'd neglected: proposals, expansions, investor notes. Once he would have devoured them, eager to shape his empire. Now they seemed less urgent. An idea sparked. Rummaging in a side drawer, he found a notepad and pen. Sitting down at the dining table, he scribbled a list. Hospital check, daily school drop-offs and pickups, figure out a routine, groceries need healthier stuff. Call board, reduce travel, pass tasks on plan new schedule that balances kids' needs and my responsibilities. And at the bottom, he added, "Be ready for June's return. Make her feel safe, not trapped." Tears pricked his eyes, but he blinked them away. This was the second chance he never saw coming. If June awoke, he owed her the biggest apology and the promise that he was a changed man. Not perfect, but committed. He stared at the final line, heart pounding. Then he wrote one more note. "DNA test confirmed. I'm Katie and Liam's dad." Even as the pen formed those words, a surge of fierce protectiveness flooded him. No matter what, he'd stand by them from here on. Setting the pen aside, he felt calmer, as if the swirl in his head had found a direction. Tomorrow he'd juggle fatherly duties and a hospital visit again, and the day after that, and the next. Maybe this was messy, but it was real life, messy and beautiful. At last he rose, switching off the lamp. Darkness embraced the house. He walked upstairs, stopping by the twins' door. Faint moonlight illuminated their peaceful faces. Katie's arm curled around her teddy bear. Liam's brow relaxed in slumber. "They're counting on me," he thought. "I won't fail them." Before he turned away, his phone buzzed softly in his pocket, an automated hospital text saying June's vitals remained stable overnight. A hint of relief drifted through him. He whispered goodnight to the kids, to June miles away, and to the specters of past mistakes. Tomorrow was a new day, and for the first time in a long while, Kyle welcomed the dawn with something more profound than business ambition. He welcomed it with hope. The faint morning light seeped through the hospital room's blinds, cutting thin stripes across the white sheets. Kyle Anderson stood at the foot of June Collins's bed, tension coiled in his body. It had been exactly 2 weeks since the accident on the mountain pass, 2 weeks since she fell into a coma. But word from Dr. Halston said that sedation would be eased further today, a chance for June to emerge. His phone buzzed in his pocket. He barely glanced at it, heart pounding. On the chair nearby, Katie and Liam sat quietly, clutching small, welcome-back cards they'd made. The hush was broken only by the rhythmic pulse of the monitors and the occasional beep of an IV machine. A nurse in pale blue scrubs entered, checking vitals. She lifted each eyelid gently, shined a small penlight. After a moment, she turned to Kyle, voice hushed. "She's showing better response to stimuli. If we're lucky, we might see more wakefulness soon. Just be patient. Katie scooted closer. So, she might open her eyes? The nurse nodded, offering a kind smile. Could be today, sweetheart, or tomorrow. Healing isn't always predictable. Liam swallowed, his expression hopeful yet guarded. Kyle knelt beside them. We'll wait as long as it takes, he murmured. 10 minutes later, the nurse slipped out, leaving them alone with June's soft breathing and the low hum of hospital equipment. Kyle carefully brushed a strand of hair from June's forehead. She looks so peaceful, he thought, remembering the last time he'd seen her fully awake 5 years prior, eyes shining with unspoken worry. The kids inched to her bedside. Katie clutched June's hand, small fingers over limp knuckles. Mom, she whispered, it's us. We're okay. We miss you. Liam added in a shaky voice, we're staying with Dad. Kyle, he corrected, eyes flicking to Kyle, and we're safe, so you can rest, but please come back. Kyle's throat constricted. He wanted to fill the silence with 1,000 apologies, but words felt inadequate. Instead, he gently placed his hand over June's other hand, letting the moment speak. The overhead speakers down the hall crackled with a distant announcement. Life outside this room continued, but for Kyle and the twins, time froze. Suddenly, June's eyelids fluttered. It was a tiny motion like the wing beat of a trapped butterfly. But it was there. Katie gasped, yanking her hand away in shock. Liam tensed. Kyle leaned in, pulse hammering. June, he said softly, voice trembling. Can you hear me? Her eyelids flickered again, then parted a fraction, unfocused. A low, disoriented groan escaped her lips. She tried to speak, but only managed a rasp. Katie practically jumped. Mom? Mom, it's me, Katie. Liam's here too. June's gaze drifted, struggling to find the source of the voices. She blinked, an unsteady inhale shaking her chest. Kyle hurried to the bedside, pressing the call button to notify the nurse. Take it slow, he whispered. It's all right. A nurse dashed in, checking June's reflexes, adjusting the bed angle so she lay more upright. The kids crowded near. June's eyes found them at last, brows pinching in confusion. Her voice came in a rough whisper. Katie? Liam? Tears sprang to Katie's eyes as she nodded fiercely. Yeah, Mom, we're here. June's gaze slid to Kyle. A wave of recognition crossed her features, followed by shock and a flicker of anxiety. She opened her mouth again. No real words forming, just a quiet exhale. The nurse smiled. Don't strain yourself, Miss Collins. You've been through a major ordeal. June swallowed hard, her face pale. She tried to speak once more, voice raw. Whoa, what happened? Kyle exchanged a look with the nurse, who gave a slight nod. He spoke gently. You were in a car accident on the mountain road. The kids were at the hospital waiting for you. You've been out for 2 weeks. June's gaze darted to Katie and Liam, relief flooding her expression. Then confusion. Finally, her eyes locked on Kyle's. Memories flickered. Incomplete. You? She rasped, voice colored by a swirl of emotions. Why are you here? Before Kyle could answer, the nurse interjected. Let's keep it calm. Miss Collins, your children have been safe. Mr. Anderson has been caring for them until you recovered. It's best you rest a bit. We'll run more tests now that you're awake. Katie reached out, brushing tears off her cheeks. Mommy, I'm so glad you're awake, she whispered. Liam just stared, lips trembling. June blinked, trying to absorb everything. She gave a faint nod, exhaustion creeping over her again. The nurse urged them outside so June could settle. Kyle guided the kids into the hallway. Their eyes shone with a mix of joy and worry. That's good, right? Liam asked anxiously. She recognized us. She talked. Kyle placed a gentle hand on Liam's shoulder. It's a start. She needs time. But yeah, it's good. Katie sniffled. She looked scared. He couldn't deny the flicker of fear that crossed June's face. Maybe fear of facing him, fear of past truths. He straightened, swallowing thickly. Let's give her space. We'll check back once the doctors finish their evaluations. Together, they walked away, hearts pounding with relief that June was conscious and overshadowed by the knowledge that tough conversations lay ahead. Early afternoon sunlight spilled across the hospital corridor as Kyle approached June's room, a tray of food in hand. The nurse had mentioned June's appetite might return slowly, so Kyle decided to bring her something that wasn't bland cafeteria fare mild soup from a local diner, plus ginger ale. Inside, June sat propped on pillows, hair brushed back in a loose ponytail. The bruises on her face had faded to pale yellowish shadows, but her eyes, once bright with confidence, now held caution. She glanced up the second he stepped in, posture stiff. "Hi," Kyle said softly, setting the tray on the rolling table by her bed. "Figured you might be hungry. Something better than hospital jello." June offered a tentative nod. "Thank you." Her voice still rasped with weakness. She eyed the bowl. "I appreciate it." He pulled up a chair, ignoring the nervous flutter in his chest. They'd shared so much history, yet the gulf between them felt enormous. She fiddled with the thin blanket draped over her legs. "How are you feeling?" he asked quietly. June inhaled, wincing slightly. "Sore everywhere. My ribs ache. Physical therapy starts soon, right?" He nodded. "They said you'll have sessions in-room first, then maybe in the rehab wing." He paused, gaze flicking to the door. "Katie and Liam are down in the lobby with Lillian. They wanted to visit, but the doctor asked that we don't overwhelm you." June's eyes flickered with emotion. "They're okay?" "Yes," Kyle assured. "They were scared, but they're safe. They've been staying with me." She swallowed. "At your place? The one on the hill?" He noticed the tension in her voice. "Yeah, I had to. The social worker insisted someone step in for them, or else they'd end up in foster care. And I wanted to help." June stared at the bowl of soup, expression a swirl of relief and discomfort. "So you took them in," she murmured. "That must have been complicated." "Complicated is an understatement," Kyle said, a half-smile tugging at his lips. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "But they're wonderful kids, June." "I'm sorry I didn't know them sooner." Her eyes grew moist, the guilt evidently weighing on her. She struggled to form the words. "I didn't plan for you to find out this way. Everything spun out of control. And then the accident." He raised a hand gently to stop her. "We can talk about all that later when you're stronger. Right now, I'm just glad you're awake." His voice softened. "They've missed you so much." A tear slipped down her cheek. "I miss them too," she whispered, then flicked her gaze toward him. "But you, Kyle, you're the last person I expected to see when I opened my eyes." His heart constricted. "I know." Silence hung, heavy. He nodded at the soup, trying to change the subject. "Want to try some?" She reached for the spoon, pausing as if the effort itself was a challenge. Slowly, she dipped it into the broth. He watched her take a small sip, wincing at the motion. She closed her eyes briefly, savoring the warmth. "Tastes better than the hospital stuff," she admitted. "That's a start," Kyle said, lips curving into a gentle smile. Then, quieter. "June, I discovered officially that Katie and Liam are well. They're mine. I got tested. I'm sorry if that invades your privacy, but I had to keep them out of foster care." Her mouth pressed into a line, tears threatening again. "I never meant to hide them. After our last fight, you seemed so focused on expansions. I thought you'd resent me. Or them." She let out a trembling exhale. "I didn't want you to sacrifice your dream." His chest ached with remorse. "I was an idiot. I never should have let you think your dreams weren't important. I might have been preoccupied, but that doesn't mean I would have turned my back. If only we'd talked more." June nodded, face etched with regret. She opened her mouth to respond, but the door swung in, revealing a physical therapist in mint green scrubs. "Miss Collins? Ready for a short session?" he asked cheerfully, wheeling in a small portable stand. June blinked, hastily wiping her cheeks. "Yes," she said, voice trembling. She glanced at Kyle. "We'll continue this later?" He stood, stepping back. "Yeah, of course. I'll bring the kids by soon. Take it easy, okay?" She gave a faint nod and he slipped out, heart swirling with too many emotions to name. Outside, the corridor buzzed with hospital life. He leaned against the wall, chest tight. She's alive, awake, and so close. Yet the distance between them felt like a canyon, carved by misunderstandings and lost years. He closed his eyes, remembering the raw vulnerability on her face. She wasn't just physically wounded, her spirit was battered by guilt, fear, regret. We can heal this somehow, he told himself, pushing away doubt. The next step would be bridging that emotional gap, one conversation at a time. Later that day, Katie and Liam perched in the waiting room with Lillian. As Kyle approached, they jumped up. "Is Mom okay?" Katie demanded. "Did you see her?" "Yeah," Kyle said, resting a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "She's tired, but she's awake and recognized me." He smiled for their sake. "She even had a little soup." Liam looked relieved, but also uncertain. "When can we see her?" "Soon," Kyle promised. "She's doing a short physical therapy session. Then we'll see if she's up for visitors." Katie hugged her teddy bear tighter, eyes shining with tears of both joy and anxiety. "Thank you," she whispered, glancing up at Kyle with gratitude. "For everything." In that moment, the swirl of hospital corridors and lingering guilt faded. All Kyle felt was a father's fierce devotion. He'd help June stand again physically, emotionally. He'd show her that this time he wasn't walking away. The hush of late morning at Silvercrest Hospital shattered when Catherine Anderson Kyle's formidable mother stepped off the elevator. Impeccably dressed in a tailored blazer, her sharp gaze swept the corridor until it landed on her son. Kyle, flipping through some hospital documents, stiffened at the sight of her. "Kyle," she said crisply, "I got wind of an incident." She paused, eyes narrowing. "You apparently adopted 2 children out of nowhere?" He swallowed, annoyance stirring in his chest. "Mother, let's not do this in the hallway. June's recovering and the kids are around." Catherine's expression hardened. "Exactly. Where are they? And who is this June person who's put you in such an awkward position?" Lillian, standing nearby, shot Kyle a sympathetic glance. "I'll watch the kids," she muttered, stepping away to intercept Katie and Liam before they emerged from the vending area. Kyle guided Catherine into a vacant family consult room, shutting the door. Tension thrummed in the air. "Mother," he began, voice controlled, "I'm only going to say this once. Katie and Liam are my children, June's and mine. She was in an accident, so I've been caring for them while she recovers." Catherine's eyes flashed with disbelief. "Your children? You never mentioned any involvement with a woman who had kids. How do I know she's not trying to trap you?" Anger flared in Kyle's gut. "This isn't a scam," he snapped. "June and I were together years ago. We parted on bad terms. She left, found out she was pregnant, raised them on her own." He inhaled. "Then this accident happened. The social worker asked if anyone would take the kids. I stepped up." Catherine folded her arms. "Stepped up indeed. And how do you know for certain they're yours?" "DNA test," Kyle shot back, pulling a folded paper from his jacket. 99.9% match. Satisfied?" She studied the paper, lips pressed thin. "So you've been played for a fool all these years she never told you. Doesn't that strike you as manipulative?" His jaw tightened. "She had her reasons, and I won't allow you to insult her. If you'd seen how she cared for the kids, how she struggled alone." Catherine raised a hand, cutting him off. "Kyle, you're my son. I want what's best for you. I can't let you be taken advantage of by a woman who shows up after so long with 2 children in tow." "She didn't show up," Kyle hissed. "She nearly died in that crash. I found out by chance. She never once demanded money or forced me. Actually, she avoided me for years, thinking I wouldn't want them." His tone softened, frustration giving way to sorrow. "That's on me, too. I made her think I only cared about expansions." Catherine's posture stiffened. Silence stretched, thick with unspoken tension. Finally, she sighed, her voice clipped. "So the children are truly your blood, and the mother is in a hospital bed, incapacitated. Do you plan to keep them under your roof permanently? What if she tries to take them away afterward?" Kyle's heart panged. "If June wants to leave with them, that's her right. But I hope we can find a better solution, a family solution, not based on fear or resentment." A faint frown creased Catherine's brow. "You talk as though you want to marry this woman. Did she ask for that?" He shook his head. "We haven't even sorted through our own misunderstandings. She's still healing physically and emotionally, but yes, I do want a future with them. All of them. Disapproval flickered across her face, then something like reluctant acceptance. She stepped back. Fine, I won't sabotage you, but I'd like to meet her myself. And the children, of course. Kyle exhaled, tension easing slightly. Yes, later today maybe, but you'd better keep your tone civil. This is delicate. Catherine lifted her chin, regal as ever. I know how to be polite, Kyle. I'm only concerned about your best interests and the family name. He hid a grimace. Same old mother, he thought. Still, part of him appreciated that she'd come in person rather than send lawyers or make backroom calls. A soft knock interrupted them. Lillian poked her head in. Ma'am, the children are curious about who you are. Should I bring them to you? Catherine smoothed her blazer. Yes, please do. She paused. I'd like to see them. Might as well get acquainted. Moments later, Katie and Liam shyly stepped into the consultation room. Katie's wide hazel eyes flicked between Catherine and Kyle. Liam clutched a small toy car. Dad? He asked softly, seeking reassurance. Kyle gently placed a hand on Liam's shoulder. Liam, Katie, this is my mother, your grandmother, Catherine Anderson. Catherine gave them a measured smile. Hello? She said, voice gentler than usual. I hear you two have been living with Kyle. She eyed them closely, as though searching for family resemblances. I hope you're comfortable? Katie nodded hesitantly, shifting closer to Kyle. Liam just said, Yeah, it's big, different from where we lived with Mom. Catherine studied them. Something soft flickered in her gaze. Well, I'm sure we'll learn more about each other in time. An awkward hush fell. Katie fiddled with her shirt hem while Liam eyed the polished floor. Kyle cleared his throat. Mother, he said pointedly, the kids have been through a lot. They don't need an interrogation. Catherine caught the warning in his tone. She sighed, modulating her voice. I'm sure. Katie, Liam, it's nice to finally meet you. Let's talk again soon. Maybe over lunch. Katie managed a small smile. Okay. With that, Catherine gave a curt nod and excused herself, leaving an undercurrent of tension in her wake. The door closed softly behind her. Liam let out a breath, shoulders relaxing. She's kinda intense, he whispered. Kyle forced a chuckle. Yeah, she can be, but she's family. And she'll come around. Katie's brow furrowed. I don't want her to be mean to Mom. He knelt, meeting her worried gaze. I won't let that happen, he promised. We'll handle this together. Because now, more than ever, they were a family through blood, love, and the determination to overcome the misunderstandings that once tore them apart. A soft amber glow bathed the hospital's solarium as the sun dipped behind the distant peaks. June, more alert but still weak, sat in a wheelchair near the window, gazing at the rugged mountain silhouette. Kyle stood beside her, arms folded, tension radiating from him. It was the first time she'd been able to leave her hospital bed for a short, fresh air break indoors, and they had a rare moment alone. She inhaled unsteadily, eyes flicking to Kyle. Every time I see that view, I remember how close I came to not seeing it again, she whispered. I can't believe the accident was that bad. He nodded, clearing his throat. The doctors say you were lucky and strong. A tiny smile tugged at her lips. I had to be. Katie and Liam needed me. Her gaze fell, voice quivering. And it turns out they needed you, too. Kyle felt that statement in his bones. I wish I'd known sooner, he said quietly. I found your letters, your notes, after everything. Why you left. June, I regret it all. She flinched, tears threatening. I was so scared. You were so determined to expand your business overseas. Whenever I hinted about starting a family, you brushed it off. I thought if I told you I was pregnant, you'd give up your dream out of obligation and then resent us forever. Never, Kyle said firmly. Sure, maybe I was misguided, too focused on that expansion. But I wanted a life with you. I never would have turned my back or grown bitter. He exhaled, regret thick in his voice. If only we'd talked honestly. Her hands gripped the wheelchair's arms. Maybe, but I made a choice I didn't want to stand in your way. Then everything spiraled. I was ashamed to come back. They lapsed into silence, the glow of dusk painting the glass walls. Finally, Kyle asked gently, "So what now? You'll be discharged soon, right?" She swallowed. "Yes, in a few days if therapy goes well. But," she stared at her lap, "I don't know where to go, Kyle. My little house is fine, but it's cramped, and I can't do everything alone while I'm still healing. I can't even drive for a while." His voice softened. "You and the kids are welcome at my place. You know that." She hesitated. "That's complicated. Living under the same roof stirs up everything. Old feelings, old fears. And your mother's not exactly thrilled I exist." Kyle grimaced. "Catherine will adjust. She just needs time. Don't let her push you away. As for old feelings," he placed a tentative hand on hers, "we can handle them if we face them together. If it's best for you and the kids, I want you at the house. No pressure, but I'd be honored." Her lashes fluttered, tears pooling. "I appreciate that." A shaky breath escaped. "But are we sure we can handle it? The kids are so excited to have you. If things fall apart, they'll be crushed." He tightened his grip gently. "I'm not running, June. I want to help you recover, physically and emotionally. Even if it means we take it slow, have separate rooms, whatever you need. I just want you to feel safe. My house is your house, if that's what you choose." She studied his face, searching for any hint of doubt. But his gaze was steady, brimming with sincerity. "Kyle," she whispered, voice catching, "I'm terrified but also hopeful." He leaned closer, the air thick with unspoken longing. "Me too." Then he drew back, remembering her injuries, the fragility of her emotions. "I promise I'll respect your boundaries." She mustered a small, watery smile. "I'll think about it. In the meantime, can I see Katie and Liam more? The nurse said I can have short visits daily, but they've been keeping them away so I can rest. I need them, Kyle." His heart clenched at the vulnerability in her voice. "Of course. They're dying to see you. We'll set up a schedule morning and evening visits." He paused, voice warm. "They love you so much. I've seen how they talk about you. They admire your dancing, your devotion." A flicker of pride shimmered in her eyes, then sadness. "I missed so much, and you missed so much," she murmured, guilt clouding her tone. "I'm sorry." "For shutting you out all those years." He shook his head, voice tender. "We'll figure it out. Let's just take one step at a time." The nurse approached to wheel June back for her next therapy check. Kyle stepped aside, letting them pass. But as June was rolled toward the door, she turned her head. "Hey, Kyle," she called softly. He paused. "Yes?" "Thank you," she said, voice trembling with raw sincerity. "For being here. For them. For me." He offered a gentle nod, eyes locked on hers. "I'm not going anywhere." The nurse pushed her wheelchair out, leaving Kyle alone in the warm hush of the solarium. Outside, the sun dipped behind the mountains, fiery orange sinking into dusky purple. He pressed a hand to the glass, heart full of conflicting emotions, relief, longing, guilt, and a fragile, powerful hope. They still had formidable obstacles ahead: Catherine's skepticism, June's lingering fears, old resentments. Yet for the first time, Kyle felt a surge of determination that they could overcome it all if they stood side by side. The question remained, would June fully trust him again? He inhaled, stepping into the corridor, mind made up. "I'll do whatever it takes," he vowed silently, because what lay at stake was far too precious. Their family, wounded by misunderstanding but bound by love. And love, if they nurtured it right, would light the path to healing. The midday sun glinted off the windshield as Kyle Anderson guided his SUV up the winding road to his hilltop estate. In the passenger seat, June Collins sat quietly, her gaze flicking between the sprawling pine forest below and the modern lines of the house ahead. She was still pale from her recent hospital stay, and the bruises on her cheekbone had faded to a faint yellow. Despite her physical fragility, a tension simmered in her posture like she was bracing for an impact that didn't involve any car accident this time. In the back seat, Katie and Liam wriggled with excitement. "Mom's back with us, really back," Katie had whispered earlier, and now she kept leaning forward to check on her mother. June forced a small smile at her daughter's anticipation, but inside, her heart thrummed with anxiety. The last time she'd walked out of Kyle's orbit, she'd never intended to return. Now she was moving in, however temporary, for the sake of her recovery and the children's stability. Kyle slowed to a stop near the garage. Before he could even switch off the ignition, Katie bounded out, her sneakers crunching on gravel. Liam followed more cautiously, his backpack slung over one shoulder. June eased open her door, a careful motion that still sent an ache through her sore ribs. She felt an unexpected wave of self-consciousness. I'm invading his life all over again, she thought. Let me help, Kyle said gently, stepping around to her side. He offered his arm. For a moment she hesitated, memories of their earlier closeness clashing with the guilt and confusion that had built between them. But the ache in her muscles won out, and she allowed him to support her weight as she climbed out. Katie darted forward, eyes alight. Mom, your room is all ready. Dad, I mean, Kyle got new pillows, and there's a big window that looks at the valley. June's breath caught at the word Dad, at how naturally it fell from Katie's lips now. She glanced at Kyle. He gave a faint smile, not commenting on the slip. Clearing her throat, June said, That sounds nice. The front doors whooshed open with a modern click, revealing the wide foyer drenched in natural light. Kyle had left the shades half drawn, so warm sunlight bathed the hardwood floors. The house felt bigger than ever, the exposed beams and sleek furniture a stark contrast to June's cozy, cluttered cottage. She reminded herself it was only temporary. A new detail caught her eye. Children's drawings taped along one wall stick figures of Katie and Liam, bright rainbows, lopsided hearts labeled family. Her throat tightened. They'd clearly made this place more kid-friendly since she'd been in the hospital. Here, let's get you to your room, Kyle murmured. He gestured down a short hallway. Katie darted ahead, pushing open the door. Inside was a bedroom that looked freshly decorated. The walls in soft cream, a plush rug underfoot, a bed with extra pillows, and an oversized recliner near the window. A small vase of wildflowers, likely Liam's or Katie's touch, rested on the nightstand. June's hospital bag, plus some boxes of her belongings, lined one corner. June swallowed hard. You didn't have to do all this, she said quietly, stepping in and feeling the odd sense of both gratitude and unease. Feels more like a guest room than mine, she thought. Katie grinned. We wanted it to be cozy, so you can rest. Liam hovered in the doorway, nodding shyly. Kyle stood beside June, arms at his sides. We'll let you get settled, he told her. But if you need anything, pain meds, a snack, a wheelchair, if you're too tired, just say the word. June nodded, sinking onto the edge of the bed. Thank you, she whispered. She could sense the children's eagerness, Kyle's concern, and her own tangled emotions all pressing in. Her ribs throbbed with a dull ache, reminding her she needed rest more than ever. Katie reached over, giving her a gentle hug. I'll be right back, Mom, she said. Come on, Liam. Let's unpack some stuff for her. They scurried out, leaving Kyle and June alone in awkward silence. He cleared his throat. I'll let you rest. She nodded, eyes lowered. All right. Just before he left, their gazes met. Something unspoken passed between them, a flicker of the old closeness, laced with regret. Then he was gone, the door clicking softly shut. June breathed out slowly, wincing at the pull in her ribcage. One step at a time, she told herself. First, recover, then figure out the rest. Late afternoon found Katie and Liam exploring the house with their mother in cautious tow. June kept one hand on the railing as they descended to the main living area. The wide windows revealed a breathtaking view of the valley, sunlight gilding the distant treetops. June had forgotten how spectacular it looked from up here. Kyle emerged from the kitchen area, wiping his hands on a dish towel. I was about to call you for dinner. You up for joining us at the table? June hesitated. I can try, just can't sit too long. He nodded, offering a gentle arm for support again. This time she waved him off, determined to manage on her own. The slight grimace on her face didn't escape his notice, but he let her keep her pride. Katie and Liam led the way, chattering about their day at school, something about a class art project and a new reading assignment. At the dining table, June eased into a seat, mindful of every movement. Liam perched beside her, Katie across. Kyle set down a simple meal of grilled chicken, roasted vegetables, and a bowl of fruit salad. "It's nothing fancy," he said with a self-conscious shrug. "I'm learning. Still beats takeout." Katie grinned. "It smells good, Dad." June's stomach flipped at the easy use of Dad, but she swallowed her reaction. Instead, she picked up her fork, forcing a small bite. The flavor wasn't half bad. Kyle had apparently improved his cooking during her hospital weeks. Katie launched into a story about a new friend at school. Liam chimed in with a random fact about solar panels, which made Kyle smile, proud of his company's main focus, and June observed the domestic rhythm as if from the outside looking in. Halfway through the meal, footsteps sounded in the foyer. A woman's voice called, "Kyle? You around?" Moments later, Lillian popped her head into the dining space, carrying a stack of folders. Sorry to interrupt. Just dropping off some documents you asked for." Kyle stood. "Hey, Lillian, it's fine. Come in." He gestured to June. "You remember June, right? She's settled in now." Lillian offered a warm smile. "Glad to see you up and about. It's good to have you here." She then turned to Kyle, quietly handing him a folder. "These are the revised budgets for the new solar project. I can handle them, but you asked to review personally." Kyle glanced at June and the kids, then sighed. "Thank you. I'll look them over tomorrow. Family time tonight." A flicker of relief crossed Lillian's face. "Of course." She shot a polite nod to June. "Take care. If you need anything, call me." With that, she retreated, leaving a subtle reminder that Kyle's business obligations still loomed. June swallowed a sip of water, studying Kyle. "You're pushing off work because of us?" He shrugged, trying to sound casual. "I have a strong executive team, and I learned the hard way that family comes first." Her chest tightened. Memories of the past, him racing to meetings, drafting merger plans late into the night, contrasted with the man before her now. Katie and Liam didn't notice the tension, too busy finishing their meal, but June sensed the undercurrent. He really has changed, she thought, a mix of hope and guilt. After dinner, the children scampered off to the living room, turning on a cartoon. June started to follow, but Kyle gently touched her elbow. "Hey, let me help you clean up," he offered, nodding at the plates. She managed a small smile. "All right." They gathered dishes in companionable silence, depositing them into the dishwasher. The domestic routine felt almost surreal to June, recalling the once luxurious dinners they shared years ago, dressy meals at upscale restaurants, never a simple home-cooked affair. As she placed the last plate in, her side twinged, forcing her to brace herself on the counter. Kyle noticed immediately. "You okay?" She nodded through the pain. "Just sore. Probably overdid it sitting for so long." Concern softened his features. "You should rest. Here, let me walk you back to your room." She almost protested, but the ache in her ribs made her relent. They passed the living room, where Katie and Liam were engrossed in an animated show featuring talking forest animals. "Night, Mom," Liam called, while Katie added, "We'll see you in the morning." June felt a rush of affection. "Yes, sweethearts, sleep well." Kyle guided her down the hallway, pausing at her door. Before she stepped inside, he quietly asked, "Need anything else? Another pillow? Water? Meds?" She met his gaze, emotions swirling, gratitude, lingering hurt, a strange warmth. "I think I'm okay." He nodded, eyes lingering on her face. "All right. Good night, June." "Good night," she whispered back, voice catching. She watched him go, footsteps fading. Then she entered the bedroom, sinking onto the bed with a tired sigh. The day had been draining physically and emotionally. Yet beneath the fatigue lay a fragile sense of possibility. Maybe we can make this work, she thought. Maybe a crisp morning breeze ruffled the trees near June Collins's Community Arts Center, perched on the edge of a small mountain town square. Kyle helped June out of his SUV, mindful of her still healing injuries. She breathed in, eyes flicking to the humble facade of the building, a brick exterior with a painted sign reading Highland Dance and Arts. The windows displayed posters of upcoming classes. Even from the outside, she could sense the place felt off, like it had been neglected since her accident. Katie and Liam had gone to school, so she and Kyle were alone. Her posture stiffened. I don't know what kind of shape the inside is in. Angela, the instructor covering for me, mentioned some financial trouble. Kyle locked the SUV. Then let's check it out. If you need any help structural financial staffing, I'm here. His tone held unwavering support, but June still felt the stirring of old insecurities. She didn't want to appear needy or let him think she was using him. They stepped into the foyer, greeted by a faint, musty odor. The waiting area lights flickered overhead. A small reception desk was unmanned. Through a glass panel, June saw a studio space with mirrored walls, scuffed floors, and racks of costumes. A few kids stretched in a corner, supervised by a frazzled woman in leggings, Angela. Angela spotted June, eyes widening. She rushed over. "June, you're—" She trailed off, taking in the bandages still peeking from under June's sleeve. Oh my gosh, I'm so relieved you're upright." June mustered a smile, accepting the gentle hug Angela offered. "Thanks for keeping things afloat." Angela grimaced. "Barely. We lost some enrollment when parents heard you might not return soon. A lot of them joined that new arts program across town." June winced. She recalled hearing rumors of a competing studio wooing students. "I was planning a fundraiser, but then the accident happened." Angela nodded, sympathetic. "We're behind on rent, too." Then her gaze shifted to Kyle. "Oh, hi. You must be, He offered a courteous nod. "Kyle Anderson. I'm here to help if needed." His gaze flicked to June, letting her decide how to present him. June inhaled slowly. "Yes, he's family now. He offered some support." Angela's eyebrows arched. "That's fantastic," she said, though confusion lingered in her eyes. She cleared her throat. "Let me show you what needs the most attention." They walked through the studio, noting chipped mirrors, a leaky corner near the roof. The supply closet was half-empty basic art materials depleted, no funds to replace them. June's heart sank. She'd worked so hard to build this center from scratch, hoping to bring art and dance to local kids who couldn't afford bigger city programs. Kyle took in everything with a measured look, occasionally jotting notes on his phone. "We can patch the roof. I know a good contractor. The financial shortfall might be remedied by a new marketing push or a short-term grant." He turned to June gently. "If you let me, I'll invest no strings attached." Her pride bristled, but so did her gratitude. "Kyle, I can't just accept charity." His voice softened. "Consider it a partnership, or a loan if that helps. But these kids deserve a thriving center." Angela looked between them, sensing the underlying tension. She tried to lighten the mood. "June, we can't lose this place. You've given so many children an outlet for creativity, and the dance classes you taught, everyone still talks about them." A wave of warmth filled June. This center was her dream, her purpose, and it was slipping away. She glanced at Kyle. The sincerity in his eyes was undeniable. "Let me think about it," she finally said, voice tight. "I appreciate the offer." He nodded, not pushing. "Of course." Before they left, Angela led them to the main studio where a group of 4 kids practiced a simple ballet routine to recorded music. The sight tugged at June's heart. She once had classes of 15 or 20 kids at a time. Now it was a fraction of that. She swallowed back the ache. As they exited the building, Kyle paused on the sidewalk. A cold breeze rustled the pine trees lining the street. "June, if the financial burden is too heavy, you don't have to carry it alone. We can figure out a strategy, maybe a community fundraiser, a partial sponsorship from my company." He slid his hands into his jacket pockets. "You told me once you built this center brick by brick because you wanted to prove you could do it on your own. But letting people help doesn't diminish your accomplishment." Her throat felt tight, a swirl of guilt and relief. "I've always been so afraid of being a burden, of tying you down." She exhaled, meeting his gaze. "This place matters to me, but I won't let it become a wedge again. I'll accept help within reason." Kyle's lips curved in a small, genuine smile. "I'm glad." He gestured to the SUV. "Come on. You need rest. Let's go home." She nodded, a mixture of hope and lingering caution blooming in her chest. Home, she thought. The word felt strange when referring to Kyle's house, yet comfortingly right too. Maybe she was learning slowly that leaning on someone you loved wasn't the same as losing your independence. Early evening light spread across the massive windows of Kyle's living room as Catherine Anderson, his mother, tapped her heel impatiently on the polished floor. She'd arrived for a so-called family meeting, her expression hinting she'd have preferred a business negotiation. June sat on the sofa, posture tense, mindful of her sore ribs. Kyle stood near her, arms crossed protectively. On the other side, Katie and Liam hovered by the stairs, quietly observing. They sensed the adults' unease and stayed close, as if ready to intervene or flee. Catherine cleared her throat, gaze flicking to June. I hear you moved in temporarily, and Kyle's offering financial assistance to your arts center? June's stomach knotted. She forced a polite tone. Yes, I'm recovering, and it made sense for me to be near my children. About the center, Kyle offered some support, but we haven't finalized anything. Catherine's eyes narrowed. It's all very sudden. My son has a company to run, responsibilities far beyond minor philanthropic gestures. Are you sure you won't attempt to exploit Mother? Kyle cut in, voice steely. Enough. June never asked me for a dime. I offered. And the kids benefit from having both parents in one place. Catherine turned to him, posture stiff. I simply worry about the stability for Katie and Liam. They've been through upheaval living with you. Now their mother returns. Then what? Will she vanish again? June flinched, guilt stabbing her. She locked eyes with Catherine, mustering courage. I won't run away. That was a mistake I made once. I've learned from it. Katie bristled, stepping forward. Grandma, Mom's not trying to hurt us. She's our mom. Her small voice trembled but held a surprising firmness. Liam edged closer in agreement. Catherine's gaze softened at her grandchildren's pleas, but she refused to budge her stance. I understand you love your mother, dear, but life is more complicated than feelings. There's finances, schooling, inheritance. That's enough, Kyle repeated, jaw tight. We can handle that privately. The kids don't need to hear about inheritance or your fear of gold diggers. Catherine inhaled sharply, but June cut in before the tension exploded. I understand your concerns, she said, voice quivering with both fatigue and resolve. I swear I'm not here to take advantage. I only want to heal and be with my children. Once I'm back on my feet, I can return to my home or figure out a new arrangement, whatever's best for Katie and Liam. Catherine regarded her for a long moment. The seconds stretched. Finally, she sighed, though her tone stayed cool. Very well. Let's see how this plays out, but I expect clarity about the children's future. Katie's eyes welled with tears. We want Mom to stay, she blurted, voice cracking. Why can't you let her? Silence cloaked the room. Catherine's stern expression flickered with genuine discomfort, maybe even a twinge of guilt. She turned away, gathering her purse. I'll take my leave. We'll talk again soon, she said briskly, striding toward the door. When she was gone, the tension remained like a stale echo. Katie sniffled, and Liam put an arm around her. Kyle let out a sharp breath, leaning against the wall. I'm sorry, guys, that was intense. June sagged on the couch, heart pounding. She's protective of you, she managed, though the confrontation left her shaken. And maybe suspicious of me. Kyle knelt by the sofa, his tone grim. She doesn't see how much we've all changed. He reached for June's hand, hesitating before entwining their fingers in a gentle grip. We'll prove her wrong, or at least make her understand. Okay? June swallowed, blinking back tears. Katie and Liam crept closer, hugging both their parents in a spontaneous show of unity. June let out a trembling sigh as she felt Kyle's steady presence and the kids' small arms around her. This is what truly matters, she thought. A little fear of Catherine's wrath is nothing compared to keeping this family together. Night cloaked the mountaintop estate, a storm rolling in from the far peaks. The forecast had warned of sudden downpours typical for these highlands, but Kyle and June hadn't expected it to arrive so soon. Now rain hammered the wraparound porch, the sound a steady roar on the wooden beams. They stood side by side under the overhang, watching lightning fork across the sky. Katie and Liam were already asleep upstairs. The house seemed momentarily peaceful, aside from the storm raging beyond the railing. June hugged her arms around herself, remembering a night years ago, her and Kyle's first impromptu date by a secluded waterfall. They'd been caught in a downpour then, too, dancing under the heavy drops until they were both drenched and breathless with laughter. She shivered, but not from cold. "Remember the waterfall?" she murmured. Kyle's lips curved in a half-smile. "Yeah, you teased me about my terrible salsa steps, then showed me how to do a proper turn. I felt ridiculous, but also happier than I'd ever been." She exhaled, heart twisting. That was before everything got so complicated. A drop of rain splashed onto the porch near her feet, spraying her ankles. She stepped back instinctively, ribs protesting. "I still think about that night sometimes." He tucked his hands into his jacket pockets. "I do too. It was the moment I realized you didn't care about my business success or bank account. You just wanted me to be present, to share life with you." She bit her lip. "And later I left, because I convinced myself you needed your freedom more than a family. You should have let me decide." His tone carried regret, not anger. He studied her face, a flicker of vulnerability in his eyes. "I was going to propose that weekend." She blinked, tears threatening. "I know. I found that ring in your desk once before I left. That's partly why I panicked. I didn't want you to feel forced into fatherhood or marriage." Lightning illuminated the sky, momentarily revealing the pain etched on both their faces. Thunder rumbled. Kyle's voice went husky. "June, I was never forced. Maybe I was distracted by expansions, but I loved you, love you. That hasn't changed." Her breath caught, eyes stinging. "Don't say that if it's just pity." He stepped closer, raindrops splashing on his shoulders from the wind-blown curtain of water. "No pity. Regret, yes. Guilt, sure, but mostly love. I see you with our kids, your passion for the arts center. I see your strength." He paused, voice trembling. "I don't want to lose that again." Tears slid down her cheeks, mingling with the damp wind. She couldn't hold his gaze, heart hammering. "Kyle," she whispered, "I'm scared. If we open this door again and it fails, Katie and Liam suffer. I can't risk that." He gently brushed rain-soaked hair from her forehead. "We'll talk, communicate. No more assumptions. I won't let fear drive us apart again." He leaned in slightly, the space between them charged with old longing. She could feel the warmth of his breath. Crash, a flash of lightning, then thunder boomed. They jumped, stepping back instinctively. For a second, it broke the tension. June almost laughed at the timing, but the ache in her ribs turned it into a wince. He frowned. "You okay?" She nodded, letting out a shaky breath. "Just a twinge." Realizing how close they'd come to a kiss, she wrapped an arm around her torso protectively. Maybe we should go in." He studied her face as if deciding whether to push further. Finally, he nodded. "Of course. You need rest." They turned toward the door, but a muffled cry echoed from the hallway inside. They rushed in, finding a wide-eyed Katie at the top of the stairs, tears streaking her cheeks. "Mom? Dad?" she whimpered, voice shaking. I feel so hot." June's heart clenched. She glanced at Kyle. They hurried up, finding Katie's forehead burning to the touch. The child swayed, coughing softly. "I think the thunder scared me awake," she muttered. "And then my throat hurts." Kyle gently scooped her up. "Let's get you to bed," he said. "June, can you grab a thermometer from the downstairs bathroom kit?" June's ribs protested, but she nodded, heading back down carefully. The storm battered the windows, lightning casting ghostly shadows across the walls. Fear coiled in her, fear for Katie's fever, for the fragile place their family occupied, for the swirl of emotions with Kyle. But she clung to the moment, reminding herself that caring for their daughter took priority over every other uncertainty. When she returned with the thermometer, Kyle was propping Katie on the couch, placing a damp cloth on her forehead. Katie whimpered. June slipped beside them, ignoring her own aches to cradle her daughter's hand. The reading showed a moderately high fever. Thunder rattled the glass again, rain lashing. Together they soothed Katie, gave her children's medicine from the kit, whispered comforting words until her eyes slid closed, exhaustion overtaking her. Liam emerged from his room, concerned, and Kyle reassured him gently before guiding him back to bed. Finally, Katie drifted into a restless sleep on the sofa, head pillowed on Kyle's arm. June watched them, her heart tight with an odd mixture of dread and gratitude. In the stormy darkness, with their daughter feverish between them, she felt that sense of family deeper than any ring or vow. They were together now, nursing a child in the night, supporting each other with quiet resolve. Kyle caught her gaze over Katie's sleeping form, a question hovering in his eyes. "Are we going to be okay?" She answered with a trembling half-smile, gently smoothing Katie's hair. "We have to be," she thought, because for all the misunderstandings and hurts that tried to separate them, this was where they belonged, locked in the messy, beautiful bond of family, ready to weather storms both literal and metaphorical. A bright spring sun shone over the mountaintops, painting the sky a soft blue. June Collins, now fully out of her cast and breathing more comfortably, stood on the balcony of Kyle's hilltop home. Her hair fluttered in the gentle wind. The memory of that stormy night when Katie spiked a fever felt like a distant echo. Since then, Katie's health had improved. June's ribs had healed, and a cautious optimism filled the household. Downstairs, she could hear Kyle Anderson chatting with Katie and Liam, the siblings giggling as they pestered him about some weekend activity. June smiled to herself, recalling how only a few months ago Kyle was an enigma to the children. Now he was their dad in every sense, cooking breakfast, driving them to school, reading bedtime stories. It warmed her heart more than she could express. She walked inside slowly, heading down to the living area. There, she found Kyle sorting through a messy stack of papers while the kids teased him about spilled coffee stains. Katie hopped around, excited about the day's plan, a short family outing to the foothills. Liam peered over Kyle's shoulder, asking if those were boss papers from the energy company. Kyle looked up, spotting June. A gentle grin formed. "Hey," he said, setting the papers aside. "You feel okay? Need anything?" She shook her head, brushing hair behind her ear. "All good. Just wanted to see if you need help with whatever that is." He gave the stack a rueful glance. "Just proposals for a solar expansion, but I'm cutting back on personal oversight, delegating more." His gaze shifted to her, earnest. "I meant what I said about prioritizing family, and the center, if you'll let me." Something fluttered in June's chest. She still wrestled with guilt about him reshaping his career for them. Yet she couldn't deny the relief, the gratitude that he'd finally found balance. "Thank you," she murmured. "So about that project for the Arts Center?" He set the papers down. "Right. I've been negotiating a potential purchase of that old warehouse near the base of the mountain. It's got good bones, perfect for an expanded dance hall, a small gallery space. We can add an art room for painting, sculpture, maybe even drama workshops for local kids." June's eyes widened. "That's huge. I never dreamed we could afford something like that." "You said you wanted more space to serve kids from the surrounding towns," Kyle replied, voice warm. "I'd like to invest in that dream. Only if it's what you want, though. I won't push you." She stared at him, overwhelmed by the scale of his offer. The expression on his face told her he wasn't doing it to impress or control her. He genuinely believed in the center's mission. Her heart swelled. Yes, I want that," she managed, voice trembling with a mix of excitement and nerves. "Then let's do it." He extended a hand, as if sealing a deal. She slipped her fingers into his, and in that simple gesture, she realized how far they'd come, how trust had gradually replaced the old hurt. A loud squeal broke the moment. Katie bounded over, Liam in tow. "Mom! Dad! Are we still going to the foothills? You promised." Kyle laughed softly, releasing June's hand but sending her a look filled with promise. "We sure are. Let me just grab a jacket, and we'll be off." As he moved to fetch his jacket, Catherine Anderson stepped through the front door. She carried a garment bag, her expression notably calmer than in past visits. "Hello, everyone," she greeted, her gaze sweeping the room. "Hope I'm not interrupting?" Katie and Liam beamed at their grandmother, though Katie's eyes still held a note of caution from earlier confrontations. June stepped forward hesitantly. "We're heading out soon for a short hike," she explained. Catherine nodded, offering a small smile. I came by to invite you all to a dinner at my estate next weekend. I thought it might be nice for us to gather, discuss plans, celebrate June's recovery. She paused, focusing on Kyle. Your sister's visiting too. She wants to meet the twins. Kyle's brows rose in surprise. Dana's flying in from Seattle? At his mother's nod, a genuine smile touched his lips. That's great. Yeah, we'd love to come. Catherine pursed her lips, eyes shifting to June. I hope you'll accept my invitation as well, Miss Collins. June blinked, her chest tightening. She recalled how suspicious Catherine had been. But now, the older woman's tone carried a hint of humility. I'd be honored, June finally said softly. Catherine let out a breath, nodding. Good. Then I won't keep you. Have fun on your hike. With a polite farewell, she left, leaving a faint sense of relief in the air. Katie broke the moment with an excited whoop, grabbing Liam's hand. Finally, let's go, let's go. Liam grinned, grabbing his small backpack. June exhaled, grateful for the shift in Catherine's attitude. She glanced at Kyle. He gave her an encouraging wink, as if saying, see, things can change. Then the four of them headed out, sunshine on their backs, hearts brimming with cautious hope for what lay ahead. A few weeks later, the sun hung high over the newly refurbished Highland Arts Center, the rebranded name for June's dream facility. The old warehouse Kyle purchased had been transformed with fresh paint, large windows for natural light, and a gleaming sign out front. Banners fluttered, announcing the grand opening celebration. Inside, the space teemed with life. Local families, curious onlookers, reporters from the small-town paper. Children raced around the open dance floor, exclaiming over the new mirrored walls. In an adjacent art studio, tables brimmed with bright paints, clay, and craft supplies. Katie and Liam were among the excited kids, wearing matching shirts that read Highland Arts Helper. At the main entrance, June Collins stood greeting visitors. She wore a simple yet elegant sundress, her hair pinned up in a loose bun. Though her ribs no longer pained her, she still felt a flutter of nerves. This event was both a launch of her expanded center and a kind of personal renaissance. Kyle stood at her side in a crisp, casual shirt, smiling at well-wishers. He spotted Catherine Anderson approaching, accompanied by a couple of local community leaders. Catherine looked around the building with an almost impressed expression. Gone was her earlier scowl. She even gave June a nod of respect. It's quite remarkable what you've accomplished here, she said. June managed a gracious smile. Couldn't have done it without Kyle and the kids, of course. Catherine's lips twitched. Well, it appears you've earned the town's support. I hear enrollment is up. Sponsors are contributing. That's good. Kyle caught June's eye, winking subtly. June bit back a chuckle. Catherine's grudging approval was a long time coming, but worth every second. She thanked the older woman, then turned to greet the mayor, who arrived with a small entourage to cut a ceremonial ribbon. After a flurry of photos, the crowd funneled into the main performance hall, where kids showcased a short dance routine. Katie and Liam were among them, Liam a bit self-conscious, Katie more daring. Their playful choreography drew cheers. June, watching from the sidelines, felt her chest swell with motherly pride. We're here, together, making something beautiful. When the kids finished, Kyle slipped onto the small stage to deliver a short speech. He held the mic with ease, his business experience shining through. Thank you all for coming, he said, voice resonating in the refurbished hall. What you see here is proof that dreams can be revived and expanded. June founded this center years ago. Her passion and hard work provided a creative haven for children in our mountain community. Today, we're relaunching it as Highland Arts Center, ready to serve even more families. A burst of applause. June blushed, heart pounding at the sight of Kyle praising her in front of everyone. She wasn't used to this spotlight, but it felt right. Kyle continued. Some might ask why a corporate guy like me invests in dance or art. The answer is personal. I believe in what June built, a space where kids find confidence, expression, and hope. That's more valuable than any profit margin. The applause grew louder. June's eyes blurred with tears. He's done so much more than invest money, he's invested himself. When the speech ended, families scattered to explore. Journalists snapped photos of June beside Kyle, some even capturing Catherine beaming in the background. It was a moment that encapsulated how far they'd come from suspicion and misunderstandings to collaboration and acceptance. Later, as the crowd thinned, June wandered into the new studio, breathing in the faint scent of fresh paint. She ran her hand along the smooth bar installed on the wall. A swirl of gratitude and awe filled her. This was her dream made real not alone, but with the support of Kyle and the entire community. A tear slipped down her cheek, not from sadness, but from sheer gratitude. She felt a gentle hand on her shoulder. Turning, she found Kyle, concern in his eyes. "You okay?" She laughed softly, wiping her cheek. "Better than okay. I'm just overwhelmed." Her gaze flickered around. "It's everything I imagined and more." He smiled, stepping closer. "And there's more to come." He glanced over his shoulder, noticing Katie and Liam wave from the doorway. "We have quite a future ahead of us, June." She nodded, heart warm. And for the first time in years, she believed it wholeheartedly. Night fell over the mountains, the town below still abuzz with talk of the new arts center. Kyle guided June along a narrow trail up a gentle slope just past the edge of the newly acquired property. Lanterns hung from low branches, casting a soft glow on the winding path. The air was cool but not uncomfortable, scented with pine and distant wildflowers. June's curiosity grew with every step. "What's this all about?" she whispered. Kyle gave her a playful smile. "You'll see." Eventually, they reached a small clearing that overlooked the moonlit valley. Tiny LED lights strung overhead twinkled like artificial fireflies, illuminating a modest picnic blanket with pillows. A thermos, 2 cups, and a few scattered photos lay spread out. June's breath caught. "Kyle." He cleared his throat, his usual businesslike demeanor replaced by a vulnerable warmth. "I wanted a quiet moment, away from the crowd." He gestured to the photos. "These are some snapshots I collected memories from before you left, plus new ones with the kids." She knelt to pick one up, a candid shot of them dancing at a charity gala years ago. June's eyes stung with emotion. "You kept these?" He nodded, lowering himself beside her on the blanket. "I never stopped loving you, even when I couldn't find you." He tapped a newer picture, Katie and Liam beaming in front of the newly renovated center. "We lost too many years. I don't want to lose a single day more." Tears blurred her vision. The gentle glow of the lanterns, the hush of the mountain air, and the sincerity in Kyle's voice all wove together into a heart-stopping moment. "Kyle," she whispered, placing the photo carefully down. He inhaled, voice thick. "I know we've been rebuilding trust step by step. We've made mistakes. But these last months, living with the kids, working on the center, seeing you recover, it's shown me what truly matters." He reached into his jacket pocket, pulling out a small box. June's heart skipped wildly. "Is this?" Her mind flashed to the ring she once discovered, back when everything was about to unravel. Had he kept it all these years? Slowly he opened the box, revealing a delicate ring with a sapphire center. Under the lantern light, it glimmered with a subtle radiance. "I was going to propose back then," he murmured. "But life got in the way. Now I want to do it right, with no secrets or misunderstandings." June's breath caught, tears sliding down her cheeks. 1,000 emotions collided. Regret for the lost time, gratitude for this second chance, love so strong it felt almost overwhelming. She couldn't speak, her voice choked with emotion. Kyle gently lifted her hand. "June Collins, will you marry me? Will you be my partner, raising Katie and Liam together, building whatever future you dream of?" A flood of relief and joy poured through her. She remembered her old fears that he'd resent fatherhood, or that she'd be a burden. But those fears felt distant now, eclipsed by his unwavering devotion. "Yes," she finally managed, voice trembling. "Yes, Kyle, I want that. I want us." He slid the ring onto her finger just the right size, and she let out a shaky laugh. The sapphire sparkled under the moonlight, a symbol of love renewed, not bound by old regrets. Tears mingled with laughter as he pulled her into a gentle embrace. They sat there for a long moment, hearts pounding in unison, the hush of the mountains cradling them. In the sky overhead, stars gleamed fiercely as if celebrating their commitment. Nearby, faint applause sounded. June spun around to see Katie and Liam peeking from behind a tree, clapping with pure delight. She blushed, but Kyle just laughed. "Guess we have an audience." Katie raced forward, flinging her arms around her parents. Liam followed, grinning. "Does this mean we're all like a real family now?" he asked, eyes shining. June kissed his temple. "We already were," she said, voice thick with love. "But this makes it official." Morning light broke over the new Highland Arts Center, casting long rays through the tall windows. A handful of friends, staff, and curious townspeople gathered in the main hall, where June and Kyle had invited them for a post-grand opening thank you brunch. On a side table sat fresh pastries, fruit, and coffee. Soft, classical music drifted from hidden speakers, adding a serene ambience. Standing near the center of the room, June Collins adjusted her simple yet elegant white blouse, the sapphire ring on her finger glinting subtly. Beside her, Kyle Anderson wore a relaxed smile, Katie and Liam hugging each of his sides. Catherine Anderson approached, clearing her throat. "Well," she said, half awkward, half warm, "I hear congratulations are in order?" June nodded, carefully reading Catherine's expression. "Yes. Kyle proposed last night." Katie beamed. "We saw. It was so cool under the stars." Catherine's stern facade cracked into the faintest smile. "I see. Congratulations." The older woman glanced at June, a mix of pride and lingering formality. "I admit I was resistant at first, but I can see how happy you all are. And those twins." She ruffled Liam's hair, then Katie's. "They're delightful." June exhaled, relief washing over her. This subtle acceptance from Catherine was more than she'd hoped for. She offered a small bow of her head. "Thank you for giving us this chance to show you." Catherine just nodded, stepping aside so the small crowd could gather. Lillian, holding a camera, arranged them for a group photo. "All right, folks, let's get everyone in the shot." She directed Kyle and June to stand in the middle, Katie and Liam clinging to them, with Catherine on one side and a few local supporters on the other. The camera clicked, capturing laughter and bright smiles. After the photo, Kyle gently tapped a spoon against a glass, calling everyone's attention. "I just want to say how grateful we are for this community," he began, voice echoing in the spacious hall. "You welcomed June's vision for an arts center, then supported it through expansion. We promise to keep this place thriving, so kids and adults can discover their passions." He glanced at June. She squeezed his hand, stepping forward. I used to think I had to do everything alone, but building something this big, this meaningful, requires more than one person. It needs family, friends, neighbors who believe. Thank you for believing." Her voice trembled with heartfelt sincerity. Liam tugged at Kyle's sleeve. Kyle nodded, letting Liam speak into the mic. The boy blushed at the sudden attention. Just wanted to say thanks for coming," he said shyly. Katie giggled, hugging him. The crowd chuckled warmly. As the brunch mingling resumed, Catherine approached Kyle and June one last time, holding out a small velvet box. June's heart fluttered, but Kyle just looked curious. "Mother?" Catherine opened it, revealing a delicate antique brooch. "This was in our family for generations," she said softly. "I'd like June to have it. Consider it a welcome into the Anderson family." June's eyes misted over. "Thank you," she whispered, taking the brooch reverently. The gesture felt like a final seal on months of misunderstandings healed. Soon the crowd trickled outside, admiring the bright day. Katie and Liam ran around the new outdoor courtyard, chasing each other with gleeful shrieks. Kyle and June strolled to the threshold of the center, hands entwined. The sun beamed on the sign reading Highland Arts Center, in bold lettering an emblem of unity, creativity, and love. Kyle turned to her, gaze glowing with devotion. "Ready to go home?" June tilted her head, smiling. "Home," she echoed, the word holding a resonance she once feared. Now it was a promise the place they'd share, raise their children, and continue building dreams together. "Yes," she affirmed. He leaned in, placing a gentle kiss on her lips. the sunlight wrapping around them like a warm embrace. Around them, friends and neighbors looked on with soft smiles, witnessing the final note of a long, winding journey from heartbreak to healing. Katie and Liam dashed over, giggling. "We're hungry again," Katie declared. Liam nodded vigorously, eyeing the pastries. Everyone laughed. Kyle scooped up Katie, June ruffled Liam's hair, and the four of them headed back inside, the family circle complete. Epilogue moment. Within the glow of that morning, the family's laughter echoed across the bright new hall, signaling not just the end of a difficult chapter, but the glorious beginning of their future. A future rooted in second chances, forged by love, and sealed by the unbreakable bond of true understanding.